Good morning and welcome back, everybody, to day 4 of the Champions Chess Tour. Maria, excited about the matches that we had ahead of ourselves for today. First, we start with Magnus versus Levon. That's going to be an interesting one. And then whoever wins that one is going to face the man himself, Grandmaster Hikaru Nakamura. I'm very excited about that. Maria, how has your day been?
Yeah, hi everybody. Very excited to be here. Yeah, not a very good day yesterday, but as we discussed and spoke about it with Hikaru, the conclusion was it's better to have all of the mistakes happen in one day and spoil only one match, but then you come back strong and much better today. Definitely no more blunders. It will be very interesting to see how Magnus versus Levon will go because Magnus had some shaky start. Losing to Artemiev. It will be really interesting to see who will come on top today. And of course, for Hikaru, it's first the show and then the work. And then again the work with some recaps. So the day full of interesting stuff.
The work never stops for sure. Now, Levon Aronian has a lot of experience nowadays with this type of format because he recently played in the American Cup and he had a lot of tough matches in that one. Mm-hmm. He played one against Fabiano Caruana that went to the Armageddon. So he's definitely in shape for this type of formats. This one is going to be very, very interesting. And I have to say, I have been impressed throughout the event by Levon's time management. Even in the match against Artemiev when he took 7.5 minutes, I did not agree with his choice of that low of a bid. I think that was a bit too low. Nevertheless, he did well. He managed to get that match all the way down to the last few seconds, and he was just faster in that crunch time. So definitely a very interesting match ahead of ourselves. And then, of course, whoever wins that one against Hikaru, that's going to be a treat for the fans.
Yeah, and a couple more words about Levon. He is, of course, very well known for being able to play for a win with both colors, black and white. And also knockout events generally are really his cup of tea because he is the only one player who won the World Cup twice. And it was in a space of more than 10 years. So he has a great intuition in feeling this moment when he should push and when he should slow down against almost any player. And he notably defeated Ding Liren in the final of 2017 World Cup. It's definitely his style, and that's why I don't really give a huge favorite to Magnus, especially that his start of the tournament was not so well.
And by the way, Maria, speaking of Ding Liren, you're in Astana right now. Tell us a bit about the vibe there close to the World Championship match.
Well, the vibe is cool. Both players are already at the official hotel. I can tell you that looking at them, some inside knowledge, I would go to bookies on Nepo. I don't know if it will change, but he looks much more relaxed, much more content and ready to play, whilst Ding gave an impression of being slightly tired, maybe jet lagged, maybe just a bit too nervous. But it's his first match, whilst Nepo already had played and against the strongest player in the world. So confidence there is definitely with Jan, and Ding will really need to first work with his mental state and only then refer to chess. And in chess, of course, he is one of the strongest players, one of the most solid players, much more than Nepo. So it will be a really interesting match.
No, absolutely. And I have to echo that sentiment. As we were getting ready for this World Championship match, it did feel like Nepo just has the experience on his side. And I think that's going to play a huge part into this World Championship match. And if I'm not mistaken, Ding Liren just got there like a few days ago. And I don't know what the time difference is between wherever he is in the world, wherever he's located, and Astana. But, 4 days is not a lot to overcome to overcome jet lag. So that's going to be an interesting one. Now, let's see if we have the games already. Boom.
It's 2 hours ahead, actually, in Beijing. I'm not sure if he is in the capital, but only 2 hours difference. And actually, Moscow is on more difference than Astana, just in a different in a different direction.
Okay.
But the bottom line is, for the World Championship match, there is absolutely no reason to come to the match so close to the start. It's much better to come and, well, you need to find your most favorite food, which you can always order. You need to find nice walking routes. You need to get familiar and completely blend into the place. And that's why players usually come to the venue months in advance or 2 weeks in advance. But yeah.
Yep. And actually, the games have started. We have Magnus versus Levon, and Levon is with the black pieces, Magnus with the white pieces, and let's see what we have. All right. Oh my goodness! So we have the same. Yesterday, you remember the game between Fabiano and Hikaru. Hikaru was with the black pieces. Fabiano played the move G3 instead of the move D4, which was Magnus's choice in this one. After G3, I believe knight to D4 was Hikaru's choice, and we got that wild game one in their respective match. Now we have a completely different approach by these two players. Let's see. D4, E4, knight to D2, and now bishop to B4. Now, after bishop to B4, obviously you cannot take on E4 because this makes a lot of sense.
Will be pinned.
That's exactly. Whichever knight you take, the other one is going to be pinned. Next move. So you take here, I take here, you're a piece down, and you can resign the game. Of course, you're not going to do that. Plays E3, take on C3, castle. Ooh, my goodness. Wow. All right. We have
on the board.
We have a former world champion that is in an angry mood.
Not yet. Not yet former world champion.
Okay, so how do you see this? Whenever they play the first move, that's when
that's
Magnus
a question. I know. Well, the Levy's question on Twitter actually opened a huge debate. But I think he is reigning champion until the last day of the tournament, when coronation is
until the last one. Okay.
Of the new champion. That's when Magnus is officially losing his title, because until the new champion, like, I don't think there is a moment when there is no champion in the world, right? It's always someone as a champion, same as like there is always someone as a president or someone who is in his role. So while the match is going, we don't have a new champion, so we cannot decrown Magnus, right? Someone has to be in a position. So I think it's the last day, the day when the coronation is happening, the award ceremony.
Makes perfect sense. Cool. All right. So we have this move G4. I have to say I'm a big fan of this type of expansions on the king side, generally in front of the opponent's castle. G5, especially in short time controls, it looks just simply very scary and is very difficult from a practical perspective. Forget about what the engine is saying. From a practical perspective, this is not going to be an easy defense for black. And we can already see that reflected on Aronian's time expenditure. Right now, 12 minutes, 40 seconds against 14 minutes. D6 makes a lot of sense, right? But what if you follow up? You played G4, you said A, let's say B. And that's exactly what Magnus is.
True. And we have actually the man himself, Hikaru, in the chat saying, "Oh, look, Levon is doing a Hikaru, playing a random move in the opening too quickly and getting in trouble."
Yes. So I guess bishop to B4 might be the move that he's thinking about. E3, take, and now G4. Now, to my eyes, I see Levon as one of the leading experts from the black side of the English. So him being early on in the opening in some sort of a difficult situation, and perhaps he's not. Perhaps he actually knows what he's doing. But the tendency and the trend that I'm seeing right now, it points to the fact that probably he doesn't actually know what he's doing. Nevertheless, I see him as one of the experts in the English. With that being said, he did have a huge accident in his match against Fabiano Caruana during the American Cup. He was completely lost. I think it was +5 or -5 against Levon after 5 moves, or like 10 moves in the opening. So he can have those type of accidents. And perhaps this one is looking like something that's trending in that direction.
Actually,
F5.
From some of the Grandmaster games available online, I see that move E4 has been played before many times, but never on the top level. Like it deviates from all the games that were played by such opening experts like Anish Giri and Nepo and many more, Gelfand, Svidler. And E4 is only played by maybe more like 2500-2600 players.
Okay. Yeah,
possible that's what Hikaru is referring to.
Most likely. And now we see this move knight to G3, a very defensive stance by that knight, coming back close to the king. And it makes a lot of sense, right? Because if you do exchange on F6, you don't want to see this queen start swarming around your king, right? You can defend that, try to go F4, but hey, hello, check. Your king has to move, and now, despite the fact that you're a pawn down and you have the 2 bishops, with such a weakened king, you might be in trouble, right? Bishop, king to D2, bishop to F5. If I manage to find a good square for this knight, then it's pretty much game over. So definitely this is not something that Aronian level Magnus wanted to see. He played the move knight to G3 and quite quickly, and queen to E8. I like this move. This is a good move. Now, I feel like at some point you're going to play F4. I have ideas of knight to G4 to try to target the pawn on F2. So for example, if you go something like bishop to D3, I'm already starting to look at moves such as knight to G4.
But maybe not F4, but F3 for now, and then try to
instead of bishop to D3, F3, right?
Yeah, to try to find king's safety maybe. First, I don't know even where the king can be safe in this position.
That's a good question. Where do you put the king, right? Queen to F7. Do you try to go to F2? I think you might have some knight to G4 ideas that you might want to worry about. But I have to say, this is already a wild position, and he played F3, by the way. He's listening to you. He's tuned in to the broadcast, taking our advice. It seems like F3, good move. I really like it.
And maybe followed by E4 to get more space, which might help him to develop pieces easier. For example, the bishop on C1 probably can go to G5.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. E4 makes a lot of sense. Get this bishop out to G5. You don't want it behind the pawn wall, C3, D4, and E3. You want to open up, make use of your extra bishop, right? There's no opponent for the dark square bishop, so it makes perfect sense what you're saying, Maria. I like it. And most likely, black is going to try to focus on this pawn on C4. This is the weakness, right? You have these ugly pawns, ugly double pawns. You want to focus on the structural weaknesses. You go knight A5.
Move. He plays rook G1.
Ooh.
Is he planning to attack the king side?
I guess he is.
Before you are attacked, take it in your hands and attack first. That's Magnus' motto.
It seems like it. Yeah, I mean, for whatever reason, and I'm not 100% sure why, he's not worried about the king being in the center, stuck in the center.
Maybe because it doesn't matter. It's just as unsafe as anywhere else. So he doesn't want to waste time.
What if I try to continue with my attack, which he didn't? He played king to H8. Okay, makes a lot of sense. For example, if you play something like bishop to A6, you have to worry about moves such as knight to F5. And now if you go rook F7, boom.
Yeah, and you prefer to put the rook on G8 instead, but here you don't have time.
Yes, that's why he played king to H8. Get this king off this file. Yeah, rook to G1, get the king out, makes a lot of sense. And what do you expect right now as a plan for White Maria?
I'd finish some development at least. I know that pawn on C4 will be attacked, but maybe if he plays bishop D3 followed by queen E2, he can defend that pawn easier, plus developing the bishop.
Yes.
Maybe
So
something like
let's
this.
take it one move at a time. You attack, I defend, then I continue attacking, right? It's all about this pawn on c4.
Yeah, but once the queen is on a4, I feel like maybe sacrificing that pawn will be natural for Magnus, because he can also he can play like knight f5 maybe.
Yes.
Attack the pawn on g7 and then double up with the queen g2 move.
Queen g2, but the thing is you're not actually threatening, and it's going to be a race right now. Let's say I take, and the thing is whenever I take on c4, I'm also having some strategical and tactical threats as well. I'm threatening to take the bishop, and once we exchange, I will have full control, or at least some control over the light squares, which is definitely helpful.
Yeah, of course, when we take on c4 and you take with the queen, we have d5 to, well, c3 is hanging, so that's a problem. No, this is probably a mistake.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is tough. This is very double-edged position.
I'm creating with the black pieces my own chances, right, against your own
And they're
king.
very concrete. It's a pawn. It's also getting closer to the king, attacking c3. Each move comes with a tempo, while white need to be more creative. So it might be easier to play for Levon.
Absolutely. I have to agree with you in that regard, because check this move out. We were analyzing bishop to d3. He played it, right? But black's moves are, again, quite easy. He only has one, and he already signaled that he knows what the plan is, right? He played this move knight to a5, looking at the pawn on c4. This is the right plan.
Yeah, Continue. So bishop a6 is very logical continuation, which we might see. And maybe after queen a4, well, we can play knight f5, right? Attack g7, and maybe knight e3 after, but that's a bit...
Okay, that makes sense. Yes. No, that makes perfect sense.
But it's slow.
But hey, check this out. You put the knight in front of the bishop, you no longer control the f4 square, right?
Yeah, I think it's a very defensive move, too defensive move.
By the way, we have a completely different move. He played the move knight to h5.
Okay, immediately.
Okay, that's an interesting one. So I guess he was a bit worried about this move knight to f5, right? Knight f5 now is not possible because I just simply take it. It does seem like he was a little bit worried. Now, what do you do as white? Do you exchange this knight? This is a very, very difficult and very critical moment. And Magnus said, no, I'm not exchanging anything. I'm going to play.
Yeah, I think he does not mind if Levon takes on g3, because he can easily capture with the pawn and connect the pawn structure, or take with the rook and at the same time lift it and protect the f3 square.
Yep. Protect f3, attack g7. You have options, right? And both of them seem to be in white's favor. So probably black is not going to take. What black can do at the same time is go knight to f4, right?
He can, but maybe we can trade. This knight made how many moves now? 4. And we are trading the bishop, which is not even developed. So we kind of exchange our 1 move for 4 moves for black.
Just 3, right? 1, 2, 3?
Yeah.
I think that's how it
3.
came there. Just 3, but
mathematics is sleeping still.
No. But yes, I understand what you're saying. And this is a very good point that a lot of our viewers can take away from this is don't exchange pieces that you've made so many moves with for a piece that hasn't yet been developed, right? It's just a very easy mathematics problem, right? You spend 3 tempies and I spend only 1. And obviously I get some time advantage because of that. Interesting position. And I think knight f4 was played. Bishop takes f4. Rook takes f4, and now we have queen to e3 on the board. Makes a lot of sense, right? But tempo, defend a little bit, maybe look at bringing knight back via e2. I guess you just have to go back, right, to f8. And these are
f7
or f7, yeah,
at
or
least
f7.
save 1 tempo there, so the knight. Well, then knight h5, of course, is possible.
At least whenever you attack it, that rook on h7, on f7 is defending, right? Which is quite nice. But now I'm starting to look at some tactics. What if I go e5? I don't think you have time to take because of queen to e4. that's going to attack both the rook on a8 and the pawn on h7. So you might be... occasionally, yes, on occasion. So you have to defend against that. Probably bishop b7. Such a wild position. Such a wild position.
And it might become even more wild, yeah.
Rook to f8 was Levon's choice, but one thing about this match so far, at least what I'm seeing, is that Levon is not as fast as he usually is. Right now, Levon has 7 minutes against 9 minutes and 30 seconds for Magnus. So the opening battle, I would say, has probably been won by the world champion. Still the world champion.
Still the world champion, and he's still probably the fastest player when it comes to complicated positions. Maybe not in a single game, but if you take a long stretch of games, he will be always performing better than everybody else because he is just so intuitively good. He's just, in any position, he will immediately see the best plan.
Absolutely, yes. He's quite quick at that. And just to remind our viewers, it's on the screen as well. But this match will decide who Hikaru is going to be facing in the next match, which will be the losers brackets final. And whoever wins that match is going to go on to face Fabiano Caruana in the grand final. So that's why we're watching this match. It decides who Hikaru is going to play next.
Yeah, and quite opposed to yesterday, it will be 2 games matches because the losers bracket has shorter matches than the winners bracket. So today will be a shorter match and more dynamic.
Absolutely.
Chess.
So we have 2 games, and in case of a tie, we go straight into an Armageddon where we have the usual bidding process that we've seen throughout the event. So yes. Absolutely. Lots of fun and exciting chess ahead. But now, okay, big moment right now. It seems like Magnus is really thinking, right?
He's really thinking. He's actually burning almost all of his time advantage. At the moment, Levon has 7 minutes left, and Magnus is just using his extra 50 seconds at the moment.
How do you get this king to safety? Do you go long castle? Is that a move, or is that too much?
I think once you go long castle, you get all this queen a4 and
the same idea that we were looking at, right?
I think so.
Some checks are coming to see to be seen in the position. Bishop takes c4. You still don't have a good way to defend that pawn. Yeah, maybe long castle is a bit too much. He did play c5. Whoa. Okay, this I did not expect.
This I did not expect it. So he's planning to play d5 after black takes.
So you take, I go d5.
No way he's going to break his center.
I know, but now, okay, my rook is starting to play a major role into the attack as well. I don't know. I'm not seeing this one as very encouraging for white, for Magnus.
And
if b takes c5 comes on the board.
This.
Yeah, perhaps after b takes c5 something else, but
maybe
what
takes.
else?
Takes. Yeah. He wants to free up d4 square for the queen. But at what cost?
At a huge cost, right?
Yeah.
Because now you give me the e5 square for my queen as well. Sure, you're going to get your queen to d4, but what after, right? I mean, sure, you're going to attack, or at least pretend to attack that pawn on g7, but it's not even clear whether that's going to help you. I go knight c6 with a tempo and then put the knight on e5. Centralize the knight, attack f3, attack d3.
Yeah,
not looking good.
d4 is not really a threat, but then what else?
I don't know, but we have it on the board.
Maybe knight goes to d4. Maybe knight is rerouting to d4.
Knight to e2, yeah. Knight to e2, try to get the knight to d4. That makes sense. By the way, queen to e5 is the last move that we've seen on the board. Magnus right now thinking, but yes, queen e5, knight e2. How do you continue? Knight e2 is on the board. They're following us. Okay. They're really listening to the broadcast. I'm not even joking.
Well, bring the knight probably. The knight on a5 now does nothing. The pawn on c4 is gone.
Yes. So where
knight
should
b7.
we?
You prefer knight b7? Yeah, makes sense.
Knight b7 or knight c6?
Yeah.
I just want to put a knight on a newly created outpost.
Probably forces white to capture on d6.
Yeah. take, I still have this c5 square. I don't know. I feel this queen to e5 was a bit premature.
Maybe. It did not really threaten with anything. Oh, queen c5.
Yeah, this is not looking good. No. And this is something that Levon did yesterday as well. He exchanged the queens when he didn't have to in his match against Artemiev. You remember that Alapin, when he only needed a draw, right? And with the white pieces, he was unable to tame the wild Artemiev. But yeah, right now, this is just a terrible endgame. I mean, look at these pawns. Look at this e4 pawn. You don't have a majority as black on the queen side.
Wasn't it also the same square on c5 that he offered the trade on?
I think it was queen a3.
Queen was on a3, but on c5, he started with c5.
That's right.
Offered the knight on c5, and Artemiev immediately captured.
Yeah. No, this is not looking good. I mean, look at this. Just king
he's just trying to trade off pieces, but he should know very well that Magnus is a beast in endgames. He's probably the best player in endgames.
He's a wizard. So no. Don't go into the endgame against Magnus. That's not a recipe
not the
for
endgames
success.
that you're not feeling comfortable in, and this is not looking good.
And the question is,
a free passer. He has a defended passer.
Yes, the pawn on e4. Exactly. I'm going to hide my king to e3.
Very active pieces, while Levon. Well, now the king is becoming like one of the best pieces here.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, if you go rook to b8, the problem is, sure, you have some activity, but I'm going to match that immediately with rook a b1, right? And I have the connection between the rooks. I don't have to worry about any trades. I just don't see a follow-up for black to improve his position right now. And king to e3, I have a clear plan. I go king to e3, I go f4, I go e5, I start pushing my pawns. I get this knight behind that pawn on e5, on e4, centralize everything, and then just win the game. King to f2 is on the board. No, this is looking...
And if it's so easy to see for us, it's definitely a piece of cake for Magnus here.
Yes. And it's just a very natural plan, right? These are the type of plans that you see first when you start playing chess, right? There's no... You don't have to worry about much. There's no weaknesses.
Pieces, everything is defended.
Exactly. Yeah, everything is defended. You don't have to worry about anything of any counterplay coming from black. So yeah, this is looking good for Magnus. And you know, I was a bit surprised when Hikaru came on the show yesterday and he said that he's probably going to play Magnus. I wasn't sure whether to give Magnus his flowers that much, but it does seem like, you know, Magnus is dominating right now, at least from a psychological point of view. I haven't seen Levon be down on time like this in any of his previous matches, and that tells a pretty significant story.
Yeah.
Bishop to e6.
Yeah, I guess Artemiev is a kryptonite for Magnus, but not a problem for Levon.
Yes.
So that's why it was such an easy match. Well, it wasn't that easy, but it was more like Levon's own wrongdoing that led him into Armageddon.
Yes.
And then Artemiev kind of like spoiled it all for himself. As Hikaru said, he just needed to play faster.
Yep. Yeah.
So Levon, well, I don't want to say got lucky, but
no, he definitely didn't get lucky, but probably if Hikaru would have been in Artemiev's shoes, I think he would have converted the advantage that he had. Yeah. I think he had a very nice time advantage, very good position. So Levon definitely dodged the bullet on in that match. But right now, difficult position for him. 3 minutes and 50 seconds against 4 minutes and 40 seconds for Magnus, and an easy plan for Magnus. By the way, you do have, however, this little trick in the position. Maybe you can start with a6. My idea is that if you take, I'm going to go rook to a8, you move the bishop somewhere, let's say b5. Now I have maybe knight b3. Right?
Yeah, I like that. So
you cannot take because you lose.
For example, rook g1.
Rook g1 makes a lot of sense, right? But now, look at this hopping knight. I'm attacking the pawn on f3. I'm attacking the pawn on e4.
Wait, can we even defend it?
Well, you can defend one of them. You cannot defend both of them.
Yeah, e4. So we have to move the king.
And then I take on
Otherwise, we're
f3.
losing exchange.
And then you lose an exchange.
Yeah, so we have to play rook d1 then.
Yes.
Pawn on a2 is not such a big problem. We need to prevent knight d2.
But then I just take on a2. And, this rook is active. This rook is definitely still active. The knight now is looking at the d2 square, try to jump there. It gets not bad for white, but rather challenging for white, right? And Magnus played bishop b5, and Levon still thinking of very long thing right now, dropping down to his last 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yeah, I do really like this. Of course, Magnus will see the trick, but it's definitely the best option for Levon how to gain some activity and maybe create counter chances.
Yes. All right, let's wait and see. Bishop to b5. We're still waiting on this move a6.
2 minutes left.
There's also this idea of maybe getting the knight to d6. That's a good square for the knight. Knights always need to be looking for outposts, and that's one of them right now. Square d6. Big moment, and really he's taking his time, dropping down to his last 2 minutes right now. 1 minute and 45 seconds. a6, best move in the position. Yay. He plays it. That was a good move.
It's not over.
Levon. It's not, definitely not over.
Magnus
the fight
takes immediately.
And he has to, right? He just doesn't have a lot of square for his bishop. Rook to a8. What do we think? Bishop to d3 or bishop to b5 is the big question.
Maybe d3.
Defend the pawn on e4, right? We've seen these ideas of knight to b3, knight d2, and take on. And bishop to d3.
Bishop on b5 is also not doing much.
Yes. So this is what we have right now on the board.
Yeah, rook d1 still. It's still probably too risky to allow knight d2.
Yes. So this is what he wants. He wants to stabilize the position like this. No knight d2. The king is off this file, so there is no more tactics involved on that file. I like this. I like this setup. It's a very safe setup for
yeah,
white.
He stabilizes, consolidates, and then starts pushing e5, e6.
Yeah. Rook d1, rook takes a2, king to e3. They're following the analysis. c4, get the knight back, but you cannot get the knight back to c5. That's the problem, because this rook protects this c5 square. Very interesting. Very, very interesting position. But I have to say the onus is right now on Aronian to prove his compensation. And I say compensation despite the fact that white is not a pawn up, but he is sort of a pawn up, right? Because this pawn on c3 attends to both the c7 and c5 pawns. You cannot create a pass pawn with a double pawn like that. So
it's kind of like a half a pawn.
Half a pawn, down. Sure. Yeah. Half a pawn down objectively, right? But we look at the position and it just feels like white's pieces are just so much better. I have so many interesting paths to explore. I can go f4, f5. I can go e5.
Setup in the center looks like just some tight knot that is about to untangle and throw everything into the black pieces. Yep.
Completely agree. Now it's looking good for Magnus, and Levon dropping down to his last 25 seconds.
Wow.
My goodness. He has to make a move. He really has to make a move right now. You have to make a move, Levon. I know it's not easy, but you have to do it. h6. Okay, but what if rook to e5 now? Rook to g6 to get the rook to c6 and start targeting these 2 pawns.
The last 10 seconds on his clock.
15 seconds right now. Rook to e5 immediately responded the best move. And what if I just pin you down? That cannot be good. This pin cannot be good.
E7, and Magnus doesn't even need to invent a wheel.
But what about rook f5? Just pin him on the f5, right?
Also, well, maybe g6.
Can I take? Can I actually take? And bishop c4?
You probably can. Yeah, you probably can.
Why not? All right, we
And
have
then
some moves.
bishop
Rook
C4.
F5, knight A5. Yeah, but this is just over. Now you can go knight to F4. And that's going to create a huge threat. Or just pick up a pawn. Yeah, Levon allowed himself to get too low on time. And right now he just has to make moves that are, well, again, it's the maxim, right? Whenever you are in a bad position, there's no good moves. And it seems to be the case in this instance. H4.
Yeah.
What do we think? How can Levon create any chances? Gonna go something like this for white. Set things up on the 7th rank, or just play knight to d4, which he did. Knight to c4. Wait, well, what is this? Can I take? Rook takes c4. Bishop takes c4.
Yeah,
Take. Bishop to d3 back, covering.
Yes,
not
just
losing
2 pieces for a rook.
2 pieces. You can go c5. Yes, and he does it. Of course he does it. He's not gonna miss this type of tactics. You can try to go. You should try to go c5.
Then knight b5. Oh,
okay.
he's tricky.
He decides to sidestep that, but
yeah, but I don't think this is any threat. Magnus can just ignore and probably push the pawn.
Yes, e5
Levon
makes a lot of
has
sense.
5 seconds, so
Yeah.
he's basically playing only on increment at the moment.
Yeah, he made this last move with
0.
I guess 2 seconds on his clock,
Yeah,
right? It's like 15 plus 3. So yeah, no. Magnus, I have to say, very dominant in the first game with the white pieces. It's still not over, but this one is trending only in one direction right now. Rook to d8. I can also go knight to e6, knight to f4, just to secure this bishop on d3, then move the king, get off the pin, and then everything is going to be nice for my position. Knight to e2.
Hikaru is saying, I only did prep for Levon, obviously. So I need to wake up and prepare for Magnus.
That's yeah. That's one way to throw off the prep, right? Peter Heine probably is very happy right now. Okay, Hikaru didn't prep for Magnus. But we know that's probably not true. Hikaru can be tricky sometimes. All right, c5, rook to c1. Wait a minute.
Trading pawns is always
But you can get the knight to e5. Okay, for a second I was worried for Magnus. I didn't see how do you defend, but yeah, knight here and knight e5 to defend, or
he also has a check and then knight e5.
Correct. Yes. Knight e5 and knight g6 and knight e5. But I think knight d5 from a practical perspective is the easier move.
Sorry guys, I keep getting distracted. I have this really excited dog running above my room. So that dog is also very excited about Hikaru playing Magnus today.
Maybe the people upstairs that are retaliating. Yeah. You probably had a wild party last night for your birthday, yeah?
Yeah.
Rook c8, maybe start giving some checks.
Yeah,
or at least that's... By the way, Magnus is falling down to his last 40 seconds. I'm not sure how he got here, but maybe he's not that comfortable, which is a little bit strange because the position just feels easy. Knight to b1. Okay. He wants to put the knight to c4. He's being, he's being typical Magnus, just trying to improve the position to the maximum.
Yeah. He's very up to the book. The knight is the best blocker for the pawn, so that's where he wants to put it.
Yeah,
and it also supports the pawn push.
And it doesn't allow the rook to pin this bishop on the 3rd rank, right?
No, not anymore. Well, rook b3 can, but you don't really want to put the rooks on light squares in this position.
And I think now it's time to push, get the rook to h7.
Yeah, it's time for e5. Maybe not yet. Maybe rook g1.
E5 is good.
No, he is pushing.
Open up. Yeah, but now I can just take an e6. I don't think you're stopping that pawn. He decides against it, but F4 is an idea. Why not? Knight
And
D6,
Magnus
all
is
right.
playing instantly. Despite him having more time, he is really putting pressure on Levon.
He doesn't have that much time.
Yeah.
Magnus down to his last 20 seconds.
He is going down to 20 seconds.
Yes. For whatever reason, he doesn't feel that comfortable, which is very strange to me. Again, it feels like an easy position.
It was the same yesterday, right? He was much more comfortably playing in an equal position and building up the advantage.
Yes.
But converting the advantage is where he seemingly was maybe not struggling, but overly protecting. And
that last move was made with perhaps less than 1 second on his clock, on Levon's clock. Knight to F5, E6, E7, bishop to B5, or bishop to F7. GG. E6. Yes.
Yeah, knight goes to F5. And
you cannot take because I go E7 followed by knight G7. That is GG.
Here,
Game
Levon
over.
Resigns. Yeah.
Magnus wins the first game. And right now, Levon is in a must-win situation. What's your assessment of this first game, Maria?
Well, I think Hikaru was right. Something went wrong for Levon in the opening. Maybe he just felt like not really trying hard to remember the lines, but just play something he felt like to. Some players have this trait, unfortunately. They can sometimes just go into something dubious, but they like it. Even the strongest players have that. I mean, do you remember how Magnus played Queen H5, the scholar's mate attempt against Rapport?
I do. Yes.
That's like why? He knows it's a bad move. But it's just like some days you just feel like
it's a flex.
Strange.
It's just a flex. Magnus likes to put some pressure psychologically on his opponents. I would say, that's just a flex. Anyway, very good start for Magnus. Levon Aronian in a must-win situation, and the games will start very soon. But before that, we're going to take a short break, freshen up, and we'll be back soon. And here we go. We're back with game 2 of the mini match between Levon Aronian and Magnus Carlsen. Magnus started with a crushing victory with the white pieces. Right now, he only needs to make a draw in order to advance to the losers brackets finals, where he will be meeting Hikaru Nakamura. Maria, excited about this one? Levon has to go all in.
Levon has to, and probably will go all in. Probably will play an opening.
We're thinking about E4, right?
More like something active.
That's what I'm thinking as well. Yeah, E4, and I'm sure Magnus will start with E5. We're not going to... Whoa!
Oh, Caro-Kann.
Never mind. Magnus says no. Okay, no Sicilian, but that I can touch the C-pawn. C6, Caro-Kann. Interesting choice, I have to say, because right now... Wait a minute. No. But you cannot play for a win easily with this move C4. You're just going to get an isolated queen's pawn position, which is considered to be very fine for black. Knight to F6.
Yeah, but maybe he just wants to create some imbalances.
Yes, that is true. That is probably the only explanation about this position. And perhaps he analyzed this from a different move order as well, because you can also get this via C4, C6, the Slav, and then you can play the move E4 at move 2. So
yeah, I think you're right. Levon probably not just analyzed it, but knows this line very well. When you have this goal to play fast, and he definitely told himself you have to play much faster in this game, he needs to play something he's very familiar with, even maybe not objectively the best opening for this situation, but better that you know it rather than not.
Absolutely. Yeah. And now we have knight F3. Magnus has a couple of ways to deal with this position. He can start with G6, which I think is the standard way of approaching this position, or you can go E6. That's another way, just solidify the control in the center. And yeah, commentators curse all around. No G6, no E6.
So he is preventing knight B5 ideas?
Perhaps bishop to B5. So one way you can deal with this type of situation is to take, and then go bishop to B5. So I guess he's trying to avoid that somehow. Yes, with this move a6. Interesting, but can I take and then try to go for bishop to c4, for example? Like take, you take back, and then I go bishop to c4. And I just feel like I'm starting to get some momentum in the position, some speed. It feels like you lost the move with this move a6. That's just my...
apparently a6 is a second line when it comes to theory.
Yeah.
And it was playing quite many times. And usually here, white will continue with bishop g5.
Yeah. Also, let's just take this brief moment to remind our viewers that this match decides who will be facing Hikaru in the finals of the losers bracket. So Magnus right now 1-0 against Levon. Levon in a must-win situation. Not easy. And bishop to e6. All right. Bishop g5, putting some pressure on the defender of the pawn on d5. Bishop to e6. Reassuring this pawn on e6 that he's safe and sound. You're guarded, little buddy.
So we will probably see g6. I don't need to be some kind of
clairvoyant. Yes.
Vanga.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So, but the question is, how do I actually want to take on c4 at any point? Perhaps not.
It depends what pieces you have to then put on d5. Maybe at some point. The problem with g6 actually is if you play g6, white can take on f6, and then you're forced to recapture with e pawn. But maybe that's what black always will want anyway.
Yes, and then I take back on d5, and we just play this position. Now, if you would have the king already castled on g1, and you would be able to go bishop to c4, kick this queen away, play d5, and start your attack, you would be just fine. The problem is that you don't have time to do that. I give you a check. Now you have to move the king or to exchange the queens, and we know that you don't want to exchange the queens as white. Also, bishop to b4 is a problem. So this one is not working. Rook to c1, g6 is on the board. So right now, are we going to see bishop takes f6, giving up the two bishops by Levon, or are we just going to see something along the lines of bishop to e2, try to play it slow and safe as white? Once again, I'm not a big fan of what Levon has done in the opening. It doesn't feel like the right way to play for an advantage.
Yeah, it is a little too uneventful. Like, for example, in many games here, white would play c5, but I'm sure that is not what Levon is thinking about. Closing the center, meaning Magnus just gets what he wants.
You should try to go something like a3, b4. The problem is it just looks slow, right? Like a3, maybe I can castle, you go b4, then I can go knight e4. And
then what is black gonna do?
Well, black's plan can be either
we will get the live board, guys. Don't worry.
Yes.
Give a second.
Yeah, so just to kind of give you an update, this is the live board. If you're looking at the analysis board, this is the live board that the players have. Last move has been g6 in the position, and right now, white with a big option to take on f6 and mess up the structure for black. At the same time, doing that has its dangers, because my dark square bishop is just going to be so powerful once he doesn't have an opponent on the dark squares, right? So I would be reluctant to take on f6 from white's perspective. I don't think he's going to do it.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree here. Black is just good like that with the pawn on e7. I feel like they have less space, and even though the pawns will be doubled, Magnus will be happy with opening up the e-file.
Oh yes. And imagine this: bishop to g7. I'm going to put pressure on this. I'm going to castle, and then, as you are mentioning, this rook from h8 will maybe even start looking at this e4 square. I have ideas of opening up this bishop on g7 with f5, get the rook to e4, and sacrifice an exchange like that. If you take it, I take back with the F pawn, visualize that, and then you're going to lose the pawn on D4. You don't have the dark square bishop. This one is not looking good for white. I have to say, Magnus, once again, it feels like he won the battle of the opening. We have bishop to E2, no bishop takes F6. Magnus, by the way, playing super fast.
And Levon did burn a lot of time. He is already 3 minutes below Magnus. And Magnus also replies instantly. Well, in fairness, bishop G7 just follows G6, very easy move.
Yeah.
Probably the easiest.
Yeah. Yeah, once you play G6, generally, you have to fianchetto the bishop.
Yeah. So now, that's... well, it's also probably an easy move for Levon. He can castle.
Castle, yes. Castle, most likely. But that's you see, that's the thing about this position. Black's moves are just so much easier, right? You castle, I castle, but what's your next step? What's your next move? I don't see a clear plan, right?
How do you play for a win? He is in a must-win situation.
Precisely, yeah. And I have a feeling that at some point I'm going to start looking at taking on C4 and taking your pawn. So you have to be careful about that. Not only that I take the pawn on C4, but I also free up the square D5 for my knight. So you will have to take some precaution.
So what if we play B3 to prepare for that?
Yes, probably B3 is a good move. By the way, he played C5. I sort of expected this move to try to create some imbalances in the position, but this was the problem. This was the problem that I was worried about, just knight to E4. Now, if you take, I take, and then you lose the pawn on D4. That's already GG, game over. You cannot touch that knight.
You cannot take.
You cannot take. If you castle, well, first of all, you're losing dark square bishop, and then you're going to lose the pawn on D4. Take
and
take
on D4.
And if you
move the bishop?
If you move the bishop, then that's another retreating move. Then I'm just going to continue. Castle. I castle, you castle. But once again, my moves are just so much easier. I can just go queen to D7. I can go bishop to F5. It just doesn't feel, once again, that you have a lot of clear ways to continue this position as white. There's no clear plan. That's what I'm worried about for Levon.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's a good point. It just feels like Magnus is just clearly better in any opening that Levon chooses.
Yes, and look at the time.
Yeah.
13 minutes, and Magnus is just blitzing out his moves against 8 minutes and 20 seconds. Definitely not an encouraging sign for a player that's in a must-win situation. That is,
and we do have people who are in the loop knowing that Magnus is a poker player. Well, he just decided to play the Norwegian Poker Championship. He's not like a professional poker player. Magnus is just really good at anything he decides to do. But he is still a very strong, of course, still world champion with a huge amount of prep. And even if he did not specifically prepare for this event, he has a huge, just lots of theory analyzed, and he has fantastic memory, guys. Don't underestimate that. He was working on his memories since he was like 6 years old.
I feel like saying he's still very strong is a bit of an understatement. I mean, the guy is still the world champion. So yes, definitely dominant player, especially against Levon. I have to say, I cannot remember the last time Levon won against him. And I remember this game at the Singfield Cup. I think it was 2018 or 2018, maybe earlier than that. Where only Magnus, he only needed a draw with the white pieces, and he got into a position where Levon, in fact, offered a draw. And with a draw, Magnus would have won the event. He said no. And he went on to beat Levon. That's a power move, and that usually stays with you psychologically for a very long time. That's why I feel Magnus has the edge, especially in this matchup.
Yeah, but don't forget that he's usually losing a lot of rating points even with a draw. Magnus, he usually loses rating points with any draw he makes.
I think at that point the elo was pretty close. Like Magnus was still like 50.
He became like number 4 in the world.
He was around 2,800. Yes, at that point he was
around 2,800.
He was good.
It's
he was
a power
good.
move then, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because you win the Single Cup, you win a big event, you don't have to worry about anything. But he decided to continue playing and actually won that game. Bishop takes f3. What do we take back with? He decides to take back with the bishop. Can I take this? Can I take a pawn? Say thank you very much. Okay, I understand. You go knight b6. And that's going to be an ugly looking rook, but I'm still a pawn up.
Yeah, it does look like first of all, these 2 knights look really nice in the center.
Sure, I can get rid of one of them, right? But then what? I will be able to at some point get this knight off of b6. Probably knight to e6 is an idea. Knight to e6, knight c7, knight a8. Why not? I know it looks ugly, but it's an idea. And I can also just focus on my knight and strengthening my complex of pieces in the center. e5, then f5, defend the pawn on e4. I have a lot of options.
Apparently there is also an exchange sacrifice option for Magnus after knight b6.
So you take.
Yeah, take knight b6, e5.
Ooh, yes.
And I will not be surprised if he plays this.
And just play this position, yeah, with a dominant dark sword bishop. Yeah. I mean, look at these knights. Once you take, and once this bishop leaves its post next to the king, I mean, the king is going to become so weak, right? I can start going queen g5, take. Good luck fending off the checkmate that's coming. This one, yeah, not looking good. You're going to get killed on the light squares.
And Magnus definitely can afford to sacrifice an exchange and maybe risk a little bit. Yeah. But it will be calculated risk, plus he has this advantage of one game he won.
Yes.
So he only needs a draw.
Yes. Once again, Levon still fighting, still kicking, still trying to create some imbalances. And look, he's catching up on time a little bit as well. He was down 5 minutes, now down only 2 minutes. So definitely improving his time situation. The position perhaps objectively is not improving, but at least there's some imbalances being created right now. Ooh, wait a minute. Bishop takes d4.
Okay, all
right. Knight to b6, why not?
The engine didn't like it.
The engine hates this move, bishop takes d4. Trying to understand why. Okay, so he's most likely going to follow it up with knight b6.
Yeah, knight b6 logical.
Nothing else makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And let's say I continue defending my exchange with rook to a7. How do you continue right now? Knight to b6 is on the board.
Well, now c5 is hanging, right?
And rook to a7 is on the board. c5 is hanging. Yes, you have to do something about that.
We need to defend it with b4.
Which he does. I don't know. I'm starting to believe for Levon. I'm starting to believe, because this position is getting wild, and with his bishop already not on his post on g7 defending the king, this knight cannot move because you're going to lose the bishop. So you have to spend some more time to defend the bishop with e5. The problem is, once you play e5, this bishop is not coming back home anytime soon. So I can go bishop h6, and now I create my own threats. I can also just go bishop to e3 and try to exchange this bishop. That's an option. And even if you take another pawn, what's this rook on a7 doing? Not much, right?
Defending b7, defending itself.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm starting to believe right now for Levon. I think he has a very serious chance to potentially win this one and equalize the score.
Yeah, so maybe Magnus was just not too sure about the knight d4 move for some reason. Oh, e5 is on the board.
E5 is on the board, yes. E5 is on the board. Bishop to E3, I think, is an important move. It's very easy. Whoa. I was just saying bishop E3 is an important move, and he takes on E4. I'm not a big fan of this move. I am not a big fan of this move. Because the problem is, once you play bishop E3 right now, then I can take on B4. And guess what? You have this extra square. This is the big problem in black's position. The knight on B6, right? If you manage to get rid of the knight on B6, get the rook back, you're just going to be a pawn up. You don't have a lot of things to worry about.
And now you cannot really trade.
Yes. Now I go A3, knight D5, and you're in trouble as white. So
yeah, but
giving this...
And Levon even played bishop H6.
Yeah.
And the engine also hates that.
He's getting greedy. He is getting greedy, and perhaps this is not the right solution. I can see why, from a visual perspective, I can see why white was tempted by this, because you take on b4, I take on f8, you take back on f8. Look at this rook, yeah? I'm on exchange up, and I have this rook in prison right now, the rook on a7.
Yeah.
So visually it's very tempting. The problem is, how do you stop knight d3 and then take on c5, and then the knight on b6 is no longer having an outpost?
Yeah.
So, and by the way,
with this knight on b6, I guess black is playing effectively two pieces for a rook.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, knight takes b4, rook takes, bishop takes f8 was played, king takes f8.
Magnus, spent some time, but not much for this knight b4. Very easy for him to spot.
He played it. He understands the fact that this is one thing that Magnus does very well, is he understands faster this type of he can assess faster this type of imbalanced positions. And I think this is one of the tenets of being a top player, a very, very top elite player. And this is where the difference is made at the top. And I think Hikaru is also very, very good at that. He's extremely good at assessing imbalanced positions
he will
on a dime.
Make that
just like that.
Before he thinks about it.
Yeah, exactly.
And also note how Magnus get recaptured on f8 with the king. Yeah, so his queen is better positioned on d8, and the king even gets a bit closer to the action. But with so few pieces left, the king is probably safe there. Yes,
that's the thing. I mean, you only have the knight on king f1, but knight d3 is coming. You know knight d3 is coming.
Oof. So Stockfish hated this. King H1.
What I think he wants is knight d3, and he's hoping for f3, and you cannot go here because now you lose the queen, right? That's a problem.
Very smart. Very smart, Levon.
But the problem is, can I just go queen h4? Is this a move?
Or just take on c5?
Take on c5, yeah. Maybe bishop takes c5. Maybe that's the easy way out. Because now knight to f2 is a threat.
It's a threat, and the knight is also hanging.
Yeah. If you try to go back knight a4 and say that you have a lot of pieces under attack, knight f2 is a problem. You take...
I guess white will have to sack an exchange here after bishop c5.
Yes, but that one is not looking good. King to h1, 5 minutes for Levon. Still complicating matters, but objectively, he's in dire straits right now. Knight to d3.
Well, knight d3 should be very easy.
Yes. You just have to make sure that your calculation is precise. And by the way, he didn't play it. He played king g7.
Wow, that's like the first move that I really don't like from Magnus.
Okay, all right. How come? What would you play as white? I sort of understand it.
He wants the queen to still be hanging on d8, but without a check. But he doesn't have enough resources for back rank checkmates.
I think he's also looking at just controlling and not allowing queen to d2, queen to h6 ideas. Also, knight to d7 is no longer coming with a check.
Makes sense.
The king on g7 is just safer than it was on f8. And from a practical and a human perspective, whenever you have a weak king, the first instinct is to just try to get it to safety, get the king to safety. And I think this instinct is playing out right now for Magnus. And by the way, just to remind our audience, this game will decide who's going to be facing Hikaru in the next match. Right now, Magnus leading 1-0. This is the second game of their 2-game mini match. Levon is in a must-win situation to push the match to the Armageddon. If he doesn't win, Magnus versus Hikaru in the next match coming up. King G7, F3. All right.
Yeah, F3 was probably the only move to prevent all of that problems on F2.
This was a great move by Levon. A really good move by Levon.
He probably had some sigh of relief when he saw King G7.
Knight to D3 immediately played by Magnus, and Rook to C2 is what we have on the board right now.
Yeah, so he can take on C5.
Sure. What are you going to take with? Well, if you take with either of your pieces, I can take back, right? So I can go Rook takes C5. Never mind.
Yeah, but this is
if you do
trick.
this, nice trick. That's going to be a checkmate. So you cannot do that. You cannot take on C5.
So it's better to take with the bishop.
He played it. Bishop takes C5 is on the board. Bishop takes C5, and now Levon is sort of forced to take back on E4 like this. Wait a minute. But now if you do this, you know what the problem is? I can force almost some sort of a draw by playing this. Queen takes D1. And now you have to take on F7. And now you have to take on D1, but you're never going to win this position. I'm a pawn up. This rook is getting back into play. So you're, in fact, in just a losing situation. Again, Magnus only needs a draw. And he gets it very easy in this position.
Yeah, exactly.
I think this match is just about to be over because, again, if Magnus finds knight to F2 right now and forces this trade of the queens and passage into the endgame, this one is just... it's trending one direction and one direction only, and that is Magnus.
Yeah, so now Magnus might play that, knight of 2. He also can take on B6.
You can take on B6, but again, you only need a draw, and Magnus is very practical when it comes to those type of situations. He's going to look at knight F2, he's going to calculate everything, and he's going to play it. I would be shocked if he takes on B6 with a bishop and allows this move rook to D2, and the game continues, right? You cannot exchange the queens anymore. I would be shocked if Magnus allows this.
Maybe we can ask chat what they think. Will it be bishop B6 or knight F2?
Let's see. Let's see if chat
also queen B6 is possible.
Queen to B6, again, it just leaves the queens on the board. Forget about the assessment. Maybe black is still better, right? But from a practical perspective, in a position and in a match situation and where you only need a draw, get into the endgame as fast as possible. He plays it. Yes,
Knight F2 is on the board.
He calculated everything. Bishop takes F8, rook takes D1, bishop C5 back. Get this knight off the B6 square. And I have a feeling Levon starts understanding that he's in a pickle right now. King G7, no problem. Don't go to F7. You might be wondering why not F7, because of knight to C8, and after rook to A8, I have this check. Knight D6, and then rook falls, and this actually is a win for white. Yeah,
this is suddenly good chances for Levon.
That's winning, yes. It's game over, but King G7 immediately played by Magnus. Yeah, he's not going to lose this one. Rook D7, King hides.
Magnus just needs to get the rook out.
Yes, precisely. Knight to C8, rook to A8, only move. You can go B6, and this knight is not going anywhere.
Oh, that's good.
And after b6, maybe you can even give up the pawn. Rook c6, hey, take my pawn. That's fine. You can take on b6. We exchange. I get the king to f4.
Trade everything.
Yes.
Completely drawn position.
Yes. Ooh. I'm excited. Hikaru versus Magnus is coming. It's coming. That's going to be...
Exactly like he said, it's going to be easy for Magnus.
It does seem that way. It's just a short match, and if you manage to put enough pressure in the early stages, especially with the white pieces, which he did, then the match seems smooth, right? But at the same time, it wasn't that easy. You know, it's easy for us to say it was easy, but it wasn't that easy. Nevertheless, we're most likely, almost guaranteed right now, to see Hikaru versus Magnus.
Yeah, it's very difficult to expect Magnus to lose an endgame with a pawn up.
Yes, maybe he was 10 years old when that last happened.
Yes.
But yeah, in recent memory, this doesn't happen. This just simply doesn't happen. All right, a5. We expect a4. If you don't play a4, I go a4 myself, and then I get the rook out via b5. a5, rook b5, rook b1. He goes a4, rook to b8.
b5 is the idea.
Well, b5 you have to be careful, right?
Because you need to move the bishop first.
First get the bishop out and then go b5. Yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah, and you need to be careful with the way you move your bishop. Oh, okay, he just...
Bishop to b4. The thing is, if you go knight a7, then I just go rook d8. Once you move the knight to try to stop me from going b5, my rook escapes. My rook has been in this prison, let's say on the queen side, close to the corner, since that knight landed on b6, right? Yeah. Finally, I get my rook out.
Yeah, and as you mentioned before, Magnus will be happy to sack the pawn because it's going to be a drawn endgame anyway. He can give up a bishop and a pawn for a knight.
Knight a7, rook d8. The rook finally escapes. Rook d2, rook a2. Pick up this pawn on a2 as well. The only hope for white right now is to try to get some sort of a miracle checkmate. That's why he played h4. Get the king to h3, hide it there, and then try to bring the knight. Knight c6, knight here, and then knight g4, and that would be a checkmate. That's if I make all the moves and you don't do anything. Which isn't.
Yeah.
The problem is once you play knight c6, I go rook c2. And the knight never moves. The knight doesn't move again, which is a problem. Yeah, no, I mean, rook to d3. He's not allowing any sort of shenanigans with g4, g5, and rook takes h7, this type of mating threats in the position. Very precise gameplay by Magnus, and right now Levon falling under 1 minute, 50 seconds and counting.
Yeah, Levon is getting really low on time again.
Yes. Well, he's in a difficult. He has been in a difficult position throughout this game and throughout this match. He hasn't had any easy puzzles to solve.
Is Hikaru again in the chat?
I'm not sure, but we're seeing some hype in the chat. We're seeing some energy in the chat.
He changed the color of the nickname.
They're sending the energy.
See you guys on the other side.
Yes.
See you there, Hikaru. May the force be with you.
That's right. Send the energy, chat. Big match ahead of ourselves. That's going to be a lot of fun. I see a lot of we got your back, Hikaru. That's right. By the way, how do you do this right now? Bishop to c5, bishop f2 is an option. Try to get this weakness on g3. And if you try to stop it with rook to c2, then I can just start targeting these two pawns. You're going to lose one of them. You're not checkmating me. So it doesn't.
2 weaknesses is more than enough.
Yeah, and I'm already a pawn up. So that's good. That's good news for my chances. Rook to c1. Magnus is taking all his time. By the way, we didn't cash this, but Levon dropped to his last 3 seconds.
Oh, wow.
3 seconds.
It's not going well for him.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Just rook a3, maybe.
Yeah, rook a3 is definitely a move. I like this bishop c5 just because your rook doesn't get on the 7th rank anymore. And I feel that's going to help my cause. Because the only thing I need to worry about in this position is some sort of a miracle checkmate for white. Like be able to get the rook on the 7th. Yeah, that's...
And then bring the knight, like 6 moves.
Right. So this is not the greatest move in terms of objective moves, but it's probably the best one in terms of practical chances. Right now, I can start focusing on this a4 pawn. I'm actually kind of curious. Why is this not a good move? Knight take. Sorry, take on g3, king h5, and perhaps you have your pieces are a bit misplaced. Okay, I can see that.
Yeah, like rook f1.
Yes, but he doesn't go for it. He goes for rook to e3, rook to c4. Maybe bishop to d4, right? King g7, okay. Whoa.
Oof.
That's not allowed. You cannot touch that pawn because now there's no way to defend. I take on g3.
And
Resignation time. Yes, very nice. Very nice sweep by Magnus. 2-0, moves on to the elimination bracket finals, where he will be meeting the one and only Hikaru Nakamura. That's going to be a fun one. Maria, I'm excited.
I'm excited as well. Hikaru is already getting ready. He's been in the chat.
Yeah.
He is totally ready. He was not preparing to play Magnus, but he was expecting it.
Somehow, I don't believe that. I'm gonna say it. I don't believe that. I think Hikaru was probably getting ready for this match. He knew yesterday, and we've understood it during the interview that he knew that Magnus is going to probably win this match.
For sure.
With that being said, we're going to take a short break, and we'll see you on the other side with the big match between Hikaru and Magnus. And we are back with the finals of the elimination bracket between Hikaru and Magnus. That is the match we've all been waiting for. Maria, what are you expecting to see in this one?
Well, it's definitely going to be a different quality of the game comparing to what we saw earlier, because we won't see such deeps in the thinking like Levon was showing. He feels like he was not prepared to play Magnus today, or maybe was a bit tired. Hikaru is definitely ready. It's going to be super close. We will see what happens. And also maybe it is a slight advantage for Hikaru that he did not play. Oh, wow, Caro-Kann again?
Yes, we have the Caro-Kann, but I also love Hikaru's
Well, it worked, but it worked against different opponent. I'm not so sure if I agree with Magnus here, because obviously Hikaru was watching the previous game.
Yes, he was, and he had some time to look at some ideas, and he decides to come with this idea of knight f3 and d3, and not necessarily force, but encourage the endgame, which supposedly is a pretty decent endgame for white. So the objective assessment, at least what the engines are saying, and I've analyzed this position with my students as well, it says that white is slightly better, has an easier way of playing the position. Most likely you're going to get the bishop to g7, but it's very easy for me to close that with a move c3. Get the king to safety via king d1 to c2, and then just play against your pieces. And it does seem like white has an easier way of developing his pieces. I'm a bit surprised about this option from Magnus. Then again, Let's see what Hikaru is going to come up with. He's definitely aware of this type of positions, this type of endgames. He's going to try to play against black's pieces. Bishop to h6. Okay, so what Magnus is trying to say right now is that whenever you're going to move this knight from d2, I'm going to be able to exchange the bishops. We were talking about this idea of bishop to g7 is going to be met by c3, and this pawn wall is going to make the bishop very uncomfortable. That's why black plays the move bishop to h6.
All right, so what is the best continuation here? Will Hikaru maybe try to use his pawn advantage? No, not pawn advantage, but the fact that he can push maybe a4, a5.
And I like this idea of getting the pawn on f3 and the pawn on e4 to make life very uncomfortable for the knight on f6, right? There's no knight d5,
Kind of
there's
like
no knight g4.
Wave breaker? Is it called wave breaker, this pawn structure?
I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know. We can invent some names if I have. Let's call it the surfer, yeah, or something like that.
Okay, surfer.
It's the surfer.
No, not the wooden shield. Wooden shield is something else,
no,
right?
that's a different one, I think. Yeah. This is the surfer pawn structure, I guess. b3. So Hikaru decides to sidestep this idea of knight to b3 and the exchange of the dark square bishop, and to just maintain the presence of the bishops on the board. Dark square bishops on the board. Makes a lot of sense. Bishop to b2, rook to d8. It looks like a scary threat and scary pin on the d file, but I'm just simply going to be able to cover that with the move knight to d3. This is what Hikaru's main idea in the position is. Interesting, very, very interesting early development from both of these pairs. Rook to d8, we're expecting knight to d3, knight to e1, and the natural follow-up is to get the knight to d3.
Played?
Which he played, yes.
C5. Yeah, they both are playing so fast.
Yes. So right now, I'm seeing a better structure for white. At the same time, what I'm worried about is this idea by black to bring the knight to the center. Knight c6, knight to d4. Everything seems to be coming with tempo. Also, I have this idea of going knight c6, knight to b4, and saying that you cannot move the knight from d3. That's going to open up the d file, and your knight on d2 is going to be in trouble. So this is what Hikaru needs to solve right now. This is the puzzle that he needs to solve right now. How do you get rid of this tension on the d file?
With c4, the chat is suggesting c4, but then d3 square is becoming so
Yes, knight to c6, and once again, rook to d7, rook to d8. It just
feels... then knight jumps there for free.
Yes, and you have to be worried about this type of ideas also after c4 and knight to b4. This can be met by rook to d8, even bishop to g7, and your king on c3 gets checkmated. So there's a lot of worries in white's position. Perhaps this b3 bishop to b2 wasn't that accurate, but still.
Also it limited the options on the queen side a lot. I feel like a4 is also now kind of comes with a lot of weaknesses in the pawn structure and limits your options with the pawn on c2.
Yes.
Also, you cannot really play c3. You can, but your bishop will become really upset. You don't want to upset that bishop.
Yes, the bishop on b2 is suffering, absolutely. And once again, it's this pressure on the d file that you have to worry about. Hikaru is thinking right now. He's trying to figure out a way to relieve this pressure, right? But how do you do it? How do you do it is the question.
But also c4. C4 is probably also a threat because...
Not immediately, right? Because then I just take...
Yeah, not immediately, but at some point might be because if you take with the pawn, then the pawn structure is damaged.
f4, okay. f4. You see, he's trying
striking on a different flank, plus blocking
close the bishop on an h6. I think this is the key. He really doesn't like that bishop on h6, and for good reason. So I like this move f4. It's a good move by Hikaru.
Some exchange sacrifices probably don't work here, at least not at the moment.
No. I don't think he
It
wants
is a
to do this.
possibility in the future, maybe, but with more development of the pieces.
Yes, that is precisely what I would argue as well. No, I like this move. The most natural way of continuing, at least to my eyes, is to just go knight to c6 for black. Knight to c6, and the question is still remains: how are you getting rid of this shish kebab on the d file of the knight's shish kebab?
Skewer, yeah.
Yes. Like the g3, you cannot move the knight from d3, right? Because the bishop will be able to take on f4. You need to lose another tempo to go g3. And the question is, does black have something immediate because look, if white manages to go king e1, bishop to g2, get the rook to d1, white is going to be having an amazing position. Good structure, more space in the center. You have some weaknesses on the queen side as black, structural weaknesses. So it's looking good if I manage to stabilize the position.
Yeah,
that's the key
exactly.
right now.
That's exactly. I like the explanation. So far, it does look a bit shaky for white, but at the same time, on the long term, the pawn structure is better for Hikaru.
Yes.
He just needs to find the way to harmonize this pieces coordination. The way the knights are placed right now is just simply not very stable, because it's better when they are defending each other or when they are covering more squares.
Yes.
Here it's kind of like a skewer double pin.
But one thing that it's encouraging right now to see from Hikaru is he's speeding up. So he played his move f4. Now he follows immediately with the move g3, what we recommended as well. The onus is on Magnus to find something. He needs to find something if he doesn't want to allow white to stabilize the position and get into get the advantage.
By the way, is it in Romanian shish kebab?
No, I don't think so. I think that's probably Turkish.
It is definitely in Turkish, but what is the word? What would be the word in Romanian?
Just kebab, I guess.
Just kebab. Because in Russian it would be like shashlik.
But it's also a borrowed word. Yes.
Yeah. It's like Armenian, Georgian, I think Kazakh as well. Well, since I'm in Kazakhstan. Shashlik.
I think everybody knows what the shish kebab is. C4. Whoa. That's a pawn sacrifice. Hikaru should probably say, thank you very much. Gift me that pawn. Why not? I'll take it. And what Magnus probably has in store, or at least what he's thinking about, is knight to a5, right?
Well, chat is chipping in with all the variations of how it's pronounced in their languages.
Yeah.
I'm hungry now. Fair enough.
By the way, Hikaru is wearing a very beautiful shirt with a "Don't care." Unfortunately, that's not for sale, it seems like, but who knows? Maybe one day. Maybe one day.
New merch?
Maybe new merch. Who knows? Maybe he's at it. Yes.
Merch check.
I would get one of those. I would definitely get one of those Don't Care t-shirts. Sold out. The mods are saying.
Missed it. I have the Bone Cloud bottle and Bone Cloud hoodie, which are also sold out.
Very cool.
Maybe I can swap something for the Don't Care t-shirt.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. C4. And right now, Hikaru is pausing for a second. This is a very critical moment in the game. You don't actually have a lot of options as white. So I'm a bit surprised that he hasn't taken on C4 yet. I don't know what else you can do. If you go knight e5, then I can take on e4. So that's not an option. You're pinned down on the d file. The only other move that I can see is, well, the only other two moves that I can see is either knight to c5 or knight to f2. But Hikaru decides to take on c4. I like this move e5 now. Get some speed in the position. Kick the knight away. Why not?
At least some counter chances.
And open up this diagonal, right? You've been dreaming about this bishop getting some life. And that's exactly what's happening right now.
Yeah.
Get this bishop on g2, put some pressure on the long diagonal, And sure, you're going to lose the pawn on c4. Black is going to be able to reestablish the material balance in the position. At the same time, look at this connected 4 pawns, Maria. Look how they're working against the bishop on h6. I really like this structure for white after the move e5. This bishop doesn't have where to go. This one is hitting the pawn on f4. On this diagonal, it's hitting the pawn on e5. You have to go all the way to f8, then somehow play the move e6 and then get it out the other diagonal. But that's going to take a very long time. So that's my recommendation right now for Hikaru.
Yeah, of course, c5 is also an option, and it's possible that he is deciding between the two. But that pawn, trying to hold on to it, is probably not going to be working out for him on the long term.
The pawn on the c4, right?
Yeah, that's
so to play
c5.
something, and he plays e5. Yes, no, that's a good move.
He
nice find. Nice find.
About the
good.
Pawn on c4.
Forget about the pawn on c4. It's all about restricting the movement of black's pieces. Good move by Hikaru. e5.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also from a practical perspective, this is a moment in which black has some options, right? That's going to force Magnus to burn some time. So because you can go knight d7, knight e8, knight g4, he makes his decision very quickly. He goes knight to d7.
Yeah.
c5.
Oh, well, now he's playing c5.
Yes. We're most likely going to see something along the lines of rook to c8. You're not going to be able to defend that pawn for a very long time. Like, for example, if
you can force the opponent to think how to win it. He can also play bishop a3.
Yes, he played rook to c8, bishop to a3, makes a lot of sense. Bishop to a3 hasn't been played yet, but it definitely makes a lot of sense. And once again, probably what black is going to try to do is try to combine certain tasks in the position. One of my tasks is to activate the bishop on h6. The way I can do that is via f8. And the other task is to reestablish the material balance. So I can do two things at once. I can go bishop d5, followed by e6 and bishop to f8. Target the pawn on c5, try to capture that and activate my pieces at the same time. So that's an option for Magnus after bishop to a3. Bishop to d4, okay.
That's also a way to defend it.
Knight to c6 is an option. Knight to c4 is an option. Bishop to f8, the move that we discussed, is an option as well. So let's see how these players are going to follow up. Knight to c6 is also a move just to kick this bishop out and then try to play for control on the c file. But that's not easy just because you are giving up a pawn, right? After b6, take, sure. You're not going to get the c5 pawn. You get some activity, but it's a difficult decision to make for black. And that's a good moment, right? Because Hikaru needs to catch up with Magnus on time. Hikaru only 7 minutes and 20 seconds, Magnus on 9 minutes and 20 seconds. Hikaru makes life difficult right now for Magnus with his last few moves. So I like what he's doing.
Yeah, so he is now in a... Well, yeah, knight c6 seems like a logical move. But then the pawn on c5 is not threatened anymore, so Hikaru can move the bishop back to b2 or maybe c3.
b6, okay.
b6.
All right.
But he can take. That's an improvement, right?
Take the pawn. Why not? And he does it. Take the pawn. Knight takes b6. You have to continue taking. You don't have time to go bishop b3. Knight c4 is going to come with tempo, and that's going to be very bad news for your king. You want to take on b6, gain some more time, and then try to take advantage of the newly created weakness with the move rook to b1. Hey, if we exchange this pawn for this pawn, and then we manage to exchange a few more pieces, sure, you're going to have some compensation for the extra pawn as black because you have the two bishops, you have the bishop pair, but your bishop on h6 is still out of play, at least for the moment.
Yeah.
And we have bishop to f2. Bishop to f2. So Hikaru decides to preserve his bishop pair with the move bishop to f2. The problem is, what if I go knight to c4 now? The black bishop on h6 looks sad. That is exactly the point.
For
yes,
sure.
Hikaru is trying to make right now. This bishop on h6 is completely out of play. This is what he's focused on. By the way, bishop to f2
G5 might be an idea for black, right?
At some point, yes. At some point. That's why I was thinking maybe I should play h4 just to close up that bishop.
Completely prevent this option.
I think bishop f5, once again, it's a multi-purpose move. You're trying to activate and give this bishop a job, but at the same time, get ready to play e6, bishop f8.
Yeah,
that's my guess. He played the move. Now bishop takes b6 and rook to b1. Okay, this was a good decision by Hikaru. He didn't take on b6 the first time. He waited for black to play bishop to f5. Now there's no more pressure on the pawn on a2, and now we can get the rook to b1, attack the pawn on b6, and not have to worry about the repercussions of not guarding the pawn on a2. So I like this transition. This transition was a good one for Hikaru, and right now Magnus is not necessarily in trouble, but he needs to find some good moves if he wants to preserve his compensation. Let's not forget, Hikaru is still a pawn up in the position. For example, f6, I think it's a good move for black, but it's not easy to find.
Yeah, I like f6.
The more I look at the position, the trend right now is in Hikaru's favor. So at the beginning, it felt like Magnus knew what he's doing, putting a lot of pressure, giving up the pawn, getting the compensation. But right now, Hikaru is speeding up. He has some easy moves in the position, and the trend is working in his favor. Black still needs to prove that this bishop on h6 can be activated. And I don't see that as an easy task anytime soon. I see somebody in chat, for Hikaru, a juicer is a juicer. That is true. A juicer is a juicer in this position.
Indeed.
Yes. Yeah. And when you're a juicer up, I can tell you, it feels good. Especially when your opponent starts burning time. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. Forget about the eval. The eval bar, we understand. It says that black has enough compensation, but the moves are not easy. You have to move. Check this sequence out. Take, I take on b6, and now you have to come back with the knight to c6. This is not very human-like, right?
No.
As humans, we'd like to advance. We like to push forward, right? This is a bit counterintuitive. So that's why I'm saying the trend is in Hikaru's favor right now. The computer hates juicers. I don't know about that. I tend to disagree with that statement. The computer loves
It really
juicers.
depends on the position. Sometimes the computer actually gives juicers too much credit.
That's true. That's what I'm saying. The computer loves the juicers in general. All right, knight to c4. That's why I'm saying you want to go forward, but this is not the best way. As the engine is saying right now, still not. Yes, that's a good move. Take the juicer. Now 2 juicers up, and I'll get the pieces out. Bishop e2, king d2. Make the easy moves. Make the easy moves. Get this rook back get the rook into play, and bishop e2 and king d2. That's the way to go right now.
Take, and we also love 2 bishops, but that bishop on h6 is still only half a bishop.
It's half a bishop for the moment, and you don't want to see that bishop get out. You really want to see him stay closed. Bishop to e2, good move by Hikaru. Getting ready to go king to d2. So how do we do it, Maria? How does Magnus get back into this game? Because look, you can take one juicer off the board, but
you can take
the second one is not going to be easy, right? I'm not going to give you the c2 pawn anytime soon. Yeah.
And also the domination over the b file allows white to infiltrate to 7th rank.
Yes, exactly. And what I dream of achieving as white is king d2, rook to b1, and exchange a pair of rooks with rook to b8. I would love to see that on the board. Then you start having problems even with your king as black. Again, I'm telling you, the trend is in Hikaru's favor, and you can see it on the clock as well. 5 minutes, 45 seconds for Hikaru. He was down 3 minutes. Now he's up a minute on the clock. This one is starting to look good. There's some pressure piling up on still the current world champion, Magnus Carlsen. E6, yes, king d2 makes an easy appearance, right? I don't think.
Yeah, and he probably wants to play g6 eventually.
G5, check this move out. So,
g5.
This is probably his idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could not play the move g5 immediately because you lose.
Pinned. Yeah.
That's why he plays e6. And now he's looking at this idea of g5. Once again, you're not in time to go this rook b1, rook b8, because once you take, and the knight is pinned, you cannot recapture back. So it's a good move by Magnus, and Hikaru immediately stops Magnus from playing g5. I like this move. I like this move a lot. I did not like seeing g5 on the board. That's one thing I didn't like to see, because my pawn structure gets weak once that happens. And with 2 bishops and so many targets, that's not a good sighting. h4, bishop to f8. King to d2. Quickly played by Hikaru. Still, it does seem like black has enough compensation. But at the same time, I have to say,
it doesn't look like Magnus is very sure of this position anymore.
It looks much better for Hikaru than it looked like 5 moves ago.
Yeah, and Magnus keeps taking a lot of time. Hikaru starts building pressure both on the position and on time.
Good move. Good move by Hikaru. Don't go to e3. If you go to e3, oops, that's a oopsie daisy.
Yep.
You don't want to see this on the board. So king to c1 immediately played by Hikaru. And by the way, right now, what Magnus needs to start doing is play for a 2-pawn compensation with this move bishop to c3, which is not easy. I'm going to defend that. Now you have to follow it up with rook to a8, but what if I go knight to c1 next? How do you get to me? I understand. You take on a2, you open up the a file, you checkmate me in one move, right? But how do you do that? Not easy to do that, right? You can try to go to d5, maybe, and put some pressure. But now I have ideas of giving up the exchange with rook to b3. That's an option. Or I can go rook to d3. Kick this bishop out of c3. Let's see. Let's see if king b1 is not an easy move to make. But you don't have a lot of alternatives in the position. Because rook takes a2 is coming. King b1, he plays it. He plays it. This one is going down to the wire, Maria.
Yeah, this is becoming already a matter of time very soon. Magnus might not find a way to. I mean, now he needs to equalize the position. I mean, for computer it does look even, but for a human point of view, okay, the bishops are very strong, but it's still 2 juicers, right? So it's Magnus who needs to prove something here.
Yes, that's true. That is true. The onus is on Magnus to prove his compensation. And by the way, Hikaru is building up a very nice and comfortable time advantage. 2 minutes on the clock right now, extra for Hikaru. 4 minutes and 23 seconds against 2 minutes, 20 seconds and counting for Magnus. Very intriguing situation right now. By the way, don't do this. If you go, oh, he takes on d3. That is okay. So basically what this says is that Magnus right now is looking to pull the brakes. He's trying to make a draw. He's not thinking about winning this game anymore. Because you're 2 pawns down. There is the presence of the opposite color bishops, which allows black to hope that you can survive even 2 pawns down, but you're never going to play for a win in this position. Yeah. So it almost feels like a concession coming from Magnus saying that, okay, you've made the right decisions. Now I have to play for a draw.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like the only person who can win here is Hikaru, and
Absolutely.
Magnus needs to be fighting for a draw now.
Yes, absolutely. Rook takes d4. Probably you're going to play something like rook to c1 followed by rook to c2. Try to cover up the second rank. There's no entry squares on the first rank because d1 is protected by the bishop on e2. This one is looking good, and with only 1 minute and 20 seconds for Magnus on the clock against 4 minutes and 20 seconds for Hikaru. Hikaru is looking good in this one. By the way, wait a minute. Can I pick up that bishop? Whoa. How do you defend after rook f1? Magnus is trying to cook something on the second rank, but what do you do? Like, you have to take on g3, sacrifice the bishop and go for the pawns, but...
Go for the pawn and... hope.
Yeah, this is hope chess right now, and Hikaru is probably feeling good. He's starting to calculate. He's a bit confused.
The first moment when in this game the engine is showing advantage for white.
Yes, I mean, surely a piece up is looking good, right?
Yeah.
Again, I get it. You have compensation on the second rank, trying to cook something with those 2 rooks, but I have a lot of defensive resources as well. So, for example, we go into this more or less forced line. Rook to d1, I get the bishop to b3, maybe even the rook to b3 to stop you from giving me any checks. And yeah, I mean, why not? Rook to d1. He does not go for the bishop. That's a surprising decision. He does not go for the bishop. Rook to d1. Are we going to go rook to b4?
He did not like something, because surely he saw that.
Yes. He assumed that he's not going to be able to win. Maybe he thought
it's not enough for a win.
Exactly. Yeah, I think this was it. The problem is that after rook to b4, I think this almost forces equality. The only way to continue, I see, is rook takes d4.
Take on d4.
And now we exchange everything, and I have enough time to get some pawns. I go bishop f. Now I start picking up some pawns.
No, guys, I don't think it's a Magnus effect. I think Hikaru was sure that there is no way of winning there.
Yes. I think he just... and it makes sense, right? Because it's not easy. And I don't think it's objectively winning, by the way.
No.
I think white definitely has chances, but it's probably not objectively winning. And by the way, draw has been agreed after a takes b3. Both of these players, I wouldn't say they're happy, but I would say it's a fair result for the first game, right? Because it felt like Magnus probably had the better chances out of the opening. Then Hikaru started speeding things up and playing very precise moves, putting a lot of pressure on that bishop on h6. In the end, it ended up being a draw. So I would say fair result.
It's really great to see Hikaru putting the world champion in both classic and blitz and rapid in such a time pressure, and actually proving that he is faster.
Why not? Absolutely. I mean, we know the speed demon that Hikaru is when it comes to short time controls. I mean, he's one of the best.
Well, maybe we will see Armageddon today.
Still one game right now. We have...
Yep.
We're going to have Magnus with the white pieces against Hikaru with the black pieces. So that's definitely going to be an intriguing one. But we've seen Hikaru play very solid chess, I have to say. I cannot remember the last time he was worse with the black pieces out of the opening. Even though sometimes he plays, shaky openings like the Sicilian, the Kalashnikov. I don't think we're going to see that, by the way, in the upcoming game. I don't think Hikaru is going to take those type of chances. But who knows? Let's see what he comes up with. Hikaru can also play the Berlin. So very intriguing game coming up. Game 2 is just around the corner. But before that starts, we're going to take a short break and we'll be back soon. Don't go anywhere.
See you soon.
And we're back, chat, with the second game of the finals, Champions Chess Tour elimination bracket, big match between Hikaru and Magnus. The first game was a draw. Hikaru was with the white pieces. Right now we see Hikaru with the black pieces, so we're going to flip the board. We're getting the POV of Hikaru. This one is going to be an interesting one. Maria, what are you expecting from this game?
Well, it definitely will be a very close game. I don't think there will be any significant risks taken. Both players need to win this match. They both have one loss in the in the winners bracket. So in order to play the final against Fabiano, they need a win.
That's right.
No risks taken, but some chances definitely will be used, and they both will be playing really fast.
This is high stakes right now. Whoever gets eliminated from this bracket gets eliminated from the tournament and finishes in third position. So high stakes match happening right now. Hikaru taking a very solid stance with the Nimzo, take on c3, put the knight on e4, play this position. I like it. I like what he's doing right now. And Magnus seems to have prepared this idea of knight to e2, leaving the bishop on f1. No castle is coming anytime soon. And potentially the idea behind this is, sure, you're going to get the bishop back, but I'm going to play f3. I'm going to recapture with my knight. My structure is going to remain intact. And I'm going to have a bit of a space advantage due to my pawn on d4 in the center. So this is what white is saying. Black is saying, okay, but that's not enough. I mean, you can go f3, that's fine. He goes d5. Whoa.
Wow.
All right.
I just said about not taking any risks, but I forgot this is world champion we were talking about.
Okay. All right. We're getting some fireworks in the position. Yeah. d5 is throwing the gauntlet, I have to say. Next few moves are going to be f3 and e4 and try to solidify the center. But that's going to open up discussion of whether black is going to be able to create some chances and get some sort of a Benoni type of structure. We're expecting f3, right? I like this.
Well, yeah, Magnus is creating some weaknesses on the queen side with the pawn on b2 and square on b3, possibly in the future getting slightly weak. So yeah, Hikaru plays rook e8. I guess he's not planning to take the pawn. He will build up a pressure, maybe bishop b7 later.
Yes, I think what he's gunning for is whenever you go f3, I'm going to take. So for example, f3, we take, and let's say, even though I'm not sure I want to play bishop b7 yet, I think what I want to do
d6?
Is take on d5.
Oh yeah, here we definitely can take.
And that's why the rook is on e8.
Yeah.
Because now you have to take with the queen and put some pressure on. I cannot take on e3. I understand that because after king to d2 or king to f2.
Yeah, we will have to take the knight and then save the other rook.
Couple of rooks under attack. This is not a good sign, right? But yeah, I like this move rook to e8. And in fact, this move rook to e8 forces Magnus to take his first think of the game. So he took him out of his opening preparation, which is already at least a psychological victory for Hikaru. And he's looking good. He's looking confident. He's showing the don't care sign, the don't care shirt that is sold out and not available for purchase right now. But it's looking good. He looks relaxed right now.
Yeah, I don't care for d5. I care for e3.
Yeah.
But f3 is sort of like expected move, regardless of this. Like battery over e file. Magnus needs to play f3 if he wants to continue putting pressure on the center.
Yeah, no, I like this f3. I'm thinking about rook to c1 and maybe take
To
with a
recapture
rook on
with the
c3.
rook, smart.
Just so that I can defend this pawn on e3, right? This was the problem that I've been seeing. I'm telling you what Magnus is calculating right now. He's calculating what we just discussed, f3, because it's the most direct way in which you can play with the white pieces. The problem is that you get to this position and you see knight takes d5, you see bishop to b7, E4. Knight to d5 is the most, not necessarily accurate, but the most practical move that you start calculating from afar, right? It defends the pawn on e3, gets the knight centralized. The problem is, once I play bishop b7, how do you continue?
But if e4 is I don't know.
You play e4, my knight is jumping to d4 immediately.
And also
my knight
you have f5 potentially.
Well, I'll tell you the big difference in the position. You have a beautiful knight. I have a beautiful knight. The difference is that I can capture your knight. You cannot touch my knight on d4. You don't have the dark square bishop, right? You cannot touch my knight on d4 unless you sacrifice an exchange. So that gives black the advantage in the position. So right now, after rook to e8, okay, what do we think about this one, Maria? And by the way, Magnus is deep. Whoa. Deep in
h4,
and he plays h4. Whoa.
Where is he going?
Okay, Maria, I'm going to give you the reins on this one. Explain to us this move, because I don't understand.
Well, I mean, it's the moves that Stockfish and AlphaZero and Leela all like. In any position, they like to play a4, a5, push to the limit, h4, h5, push it. But no, here it just seems so unrelated to what is going on the board.
Yes, I completely agree. And I have to say, I'm shocked by this move. I mean, what if I just continue with bishop b7?
It kind of makes sense when you think it's Magnus who played it, but I'm sure Hikaru is now also as shocked.
This one is, I'm not going to lie, this one feels like it's a very risky move. You're burning a lot of bridges, because now the king is more or less stuck in the center. Are you going to go short castle? Probably not. That queen is going to jump to h4. Are you going to go long castle? Absolutely not, right? Because once I take on d5, you take with the c pawn, I can push my pawns and open you up on the queen side.
Exactly.
This king is stuck.
It's either white creates a checkmate threat straight out of h4, h5, h6 idea, or I think they're going to be suffering. Hikaru takes on d5.
Take with the queen, knight to c6. Most natural way of continuing.
Well, the thing is, we can always stop that pawn with h6, right?
Yes. Once you go h5, I can always go h6.
Yeah, we can just play h6. So I don't think there is much of it's just like a distraction.
No, this is shaping up to be a very, very tense game. But
and look at that diagonal. The bishop on b7 will be such a monster looking at g2 square.
Oh, yes. You see a lot of nice pieces on that diagonal, right? And that's the problem. Once you play f3, this pawn on e3 is going to be a weakness. If you try to play f3 and e4...
Now that I think of it, maybe h4 was not to push the pawn and attack the king, but to prevent queen g5. Because the queen cannot go to f6.
Yes, but the queen...
And otherwise, how do we join the potential threats? Maybe Magnus is actually overprotecting and not being that risky.
Like Nimzovich says.
But
maybe a lot of people don't like Nimzovich for
maybe we are underestimating him and thinking he's going all in, like in poker, which did not work for him, by the way. But
I'm never underestimating Magnus.
Maybe he's in fact being protective here.
Yeah, that's he's on a very short list of players that I never underestimate. Rook to b8, maybe bishop to b7. That's an idea, right? Queen to e7 to get off this file, which makes the most sense, and he plays it. Now, if you go once again, you play h6, I go h5, I go h6. And you don't have a good way to get this rook. You would love to get this rook either to g4 or h4, right? G4 would be the dream, right?
Yeah. And it's like, it just feels like a lone fighter there.
It is. And guess who has the time advantage right now? On the clock, Hikaru building up a 2-minute time differential. Yeah, I mean, this one is going to be a barn burner, but it's shaping up to be a good position for black, for Hikaru.
Yeah, absolutely. It's becoming to look better and better.
Yes.
And yeah, I do like bishop b7 coming with some threats, like knight jumps to a5 or d8. Even d8 probably is better because the knight will reroute and join the attack on the king side.
h5 has been played.
h5.
We expect a quick h6.
Oh, h6 probably immediately.
Yes, don't allow this pawn to get to h6. h6 makes the most sense.
Well, the engine really likes d6. It's a trap, right? But yeah, I don't think it's necessary to play it here.
Sorry, which one?
d6 here is suggested by the engine, so you cannot take the knight.
Oh, yeah. That's a nice move.
Yeah, that's a very nice move.
Oh, wow. That's a crazy move, actually. And if you could try to run here, I take on f2. Is that it?
Yeah. Yeah,
oh my goodness, look at this.
Pretty,
look at
very
this.
Very pretty.
Oh my goodness, that's a nice little variation. You're giving up all of your...
It's a very engine-like move.
Yeah, that's not going to be played. He played h6, of course.
Yeah.
But that was a nice
But it shows how much of potential Hikaru's position has now due to this king stuck in the center and pieces still being very stuck and undeveloped. And the queen gets diverted to the edge of the board, which helps to launch an attack.
By the way, can I do the same thing once you play rook h3? Probably not.
Yeah, probably.
But now the pawn on e3 is protected.
Yeah, but...
So you don't have knight takes f2 anymore.
Yeah, knight takes f2 does not work, but it still feels, well, maybe not. Oh, Black Hat, thank you so much for the 5 gifted subs. Yeah, d6 probably doesn't work here. We can take on h3, but that's 2 pieces for a rook, and unless we can immediately checkmate the king, I think white will be better there.
Yeah. So after rook to h3, we have to find something else, not d6. But what if we just play normal moves, right? Like bishop to b7 or bishop to a6. Can you take this? Take. Oh, now with the rook on h3. Check this out. Hey.
Yeah, bishop c8. Bishop comes back.
I'm back on this diagonal. Not an easy move to see.
c7, and they don't have time to capture both pieces.
Thank you very much. I'll take that one. I'm going to play with an extra exchange. And I mean, you will have to prove the compensation, which I don't think exists in this position. I think black is doing amazing. Yeah. So big moment right now. Queen to d3 is being played by Magnus, sidestepping this idea of bishop to b7 and putting a lot of pressure on the long diagonal.
Well, the threat is stronger than execution, right?
It is indeed. It is indeed. And
look at the time. Wow.
He spent a lot of... Magnus doesn't like this position. And it shows in his time expenditure, time management right now.
That's why he played h4. He wanted to dictate his game, and Hikaru did not fall for it.
Yes. That's exactly right. Okay. We have to find a plan, Maria. D6, to my eyes, makes the most sense. What are you thinking?
I think I like something like bishop a6 and maybe rook d8, d5. Is it too wishful thinking?
He played bishop to b7. Okay,
he played it, yeah. Well, it also makes sense. We saw all these tactical options.
Check this idea. Boom, knight to d4. Can you take? Don't do that. That's a checkmate. That's a checkmate.
Very pretty checkmate in the center of the board.
Oh, that's a good move. That's a practical move by Hikaru.
This is checkmate from Backhouse more than from chess.
Yes, yes. Okay, so knight to d4, and now you have to take with the rook, but I mean, how is this position? Yeah. How is this position?
Well, Magnus can only take on d7 if he calculates all of that. And that might be actually, Magnus is like a computer. If he sees tactics, he will calculate it. So
Yeah.
Hikaru is like putting this bait in front of him. Go on, spend these 2 minutes calculating this.
That's right.
I dare you.
That's exact. Oh, he took it.
He took it.
Takes
so he must
bait.
have calculated.
Knight
If
d4
not,
has to come. Yes.
If not, Magnus might just lose on the spot. Okay, not checkmate lose, but if he did not see knight d4 and
he saw
just
it.
played, no, okay, he saw it. He instantly took.
He saw it and he's going into this endgame. But the problem
4
is
minutes down and exchange down. And also the bishop on f1 is still sleeping.
Exactly. And
you
after
can
rook
only
to
be
c8,
world champion to do this.
Did he play rook c8? He did play rook c8. Very good move by Hikaru.
Yeah.
Now this is a big moment.
And Hikaru calculated all of this sequence, right?
He did. And he still has 10 minutes on his clock against 6 minutes.
Yeah.
I have to say, I'm looking at this position and I only see 2 results possible. I'm not going to jinx it. I don't want to jinx it, but I only see 2 results possible right now. It's either a win for Hikaru or a draw. I don't see a way in which white can have more than compensation enough only for equality. And by the way, you have
the fact that Magnus is now taking such a deep think, he calculated not until rook c8.
Yes.
It's still impressive how quickly he calculated. Was it like 15, 20 seconds?
He took the decision very, very quickly. And right now he's putting a lot of pressure on Magnus. And he's almost doubled the time on his clock. 5 minutes and 40 seconds for Magnus against 10 minutes and 13 for Hikaru. Hikaru is putting a lot of pressure right now on Magnus. And by the way, let's not forget, if Hikaru wins this one with the black pieces, the match is over. He goes back into the grand finals where he's going to be meeting Fabiano. So not knight to g3, which was the best move. He plays the move knight to f4, eyeing the square d5. But how do you defend this pawn once I play bishop to a6?
Yeah, now? Bishop a6 and b3 doesn't really work.
b3, I would assume I'm going to start looking at this pawn as well.
Mm-hmm.
Either that or I can go b5. I don't think you can take. If you take, I go here, check, and now I take on b5 and you lose the bishop on f1 as well.
Well, you have knight d3, but then rook c2.
No, then I just take and take.
Right. Yeah, that also works. That's
problematic. Yes, no, you cannot do that. So I see what Magnus is doing. He's trying to get this knight to d5. Question is if he's in time or not. Bishop to a6 seems to be the move that poses the most problems. From a practical perspective, what I'm expecting is seeing a reroute of the knight via d6, knight d6, knight to f5. At least to the naked eye, to the human eye, that looks like the most compelling option for black. Let's see what Hikaru decides to do. He has all the time in the world.
If bishop a6, Magnus might try to... Well, there is this computer line, bishop d3. The idea is to trade this nasty knight on e4.
That's okay. I'll take.
And hope for, well, the bishops are opposite colored, but of course it's still an exchange up for black. But at least you don't have this beast paralyzing the whole position on e4.
I don't think he's going to do that. This is just simply not the type of chess Magnus does, because at this point, he really doesn't have any chance for a victory.
Yeah.
Like at this point, he's only praying that he's going to make a draw. Magnus doesn't go for this type of variations. So I'm expecting him to try to muddy the waters after bishop to a6, which was not played. He played knight d6, which I told you, it just feels like the very natural choice in the position. Just because you want to get this knight to f5.
Well, now b3 works because the knight cannot reroute to c5 easily.
Yes.
But he has knight f5. The knight
Yes.
keeps bugging the position.
Now, if you go bishop to c3, maybe I can go b5.
Can you even take on e3?
Let's see. Take on a3, I take, and then defend with the king on d2.
Bring the other rook.
Where? You cannot give a check, unfortunately.
No, not give a check, but maybe double the rooks.
Yeah, but no.
Well, if it doesn't work immediately, then we probably are busted. So I'm just trying to be adventurous. Maybe double the rooks on the third rank, like rook g3, rook e3. Is it too much?
I think white has, even if you do manage to capture this pawn on g2, unfortunately, with these two bishops and the passer that's coming on the c file, that might be bad news for black. So I don't think he's going to do this. But by the way, after 96, Magnus right now down to his last 4 minutes. He's
exactly half time comparing to Hikaru.
Half time. Hikaru with 8 minutes, Magnus with 4 minutes. Hikaru putting a lot of pressure on Magnus right now with the black pieces. It's looking good.
Big talk bust Magnus on the clock. I like it.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So for whatever reason, Magnus is not playing b3, which is the only move that defends the pawn on c4. And he's not playing it immediately. He's trying to find something else. And I'm trying to understand what he's trying to find. What other options does white have in this position outside of b3? And you know what? Since Magnus is thinking for such a straightforward move, this gives Hikaru time to calculate everything as well. Because I can tell you, Hikaru right now is looking at b3. He's already setting up his next move. So once b3 comes on the board, what else? Magnus is... what is he doing? Is he eating his lunch? Like, what's happening? Magnus needs to make a move.
Maybe Magnus, it is another sandwich. Who knows?
I mean, we know he likes his food, but during the game, come on, Magnus. Come on, Magnus. You don't have time to do that. No time for sushi.
I will try to check. No, he's calculating, it seems. But he's very annoyed with his position. Very annoyed.
Okay, I would be... He plays f3? What? He just gives up the pawn. And Hikaru is going to munch on that instantaneously, and he does. Oh,
so he really wanted to activate his rook as soon as possible, so he wants to put the king on f2.
Oh, yes. King to f2, king highs to g3, and he's trying to set up some sort of a blockade.
Good position to play.
He's playing for 2 results, Hikaru. And he must be feeling good about himself right now, because this is a very comfortable way to play this type of very decisive games, very decisive situations in the match, right? You want to play this type of positions without any risk.
Yeah, I even dare to say that I probably would have made a draw against you as black here. I probably would have made a draw with black pieces against you.
How would you do it?
I probably would not lose.
Oh, for sure not. No. I don't.
I probably would not say it in an equal position, but in this position, I dare to say I probably can make a draw.
I completely agree with you. Yes, I completely agree with you.
I'm not sure if I can make against Magnus, but
against Magnus might be a bit tricky.
Maybe if you give me 7 minutes against 2.
I mean, yeah. I don't know. Against Magnus, I would need some serious material up to even think of that. Okay, a4. He's trying to go a5. He's trying to open up this bishop. The problem is, once you do that, you also relinquish the defense of the pawn on b2. So this bishop kind of has to stay on d4 as is. All right, still not easy.
Really likes your pawns, right?
Absolutely. Still not easy, by the way.
No.
We make it sound like Hikaru is completely winning. Right now, he's still not completely winning by any means.
What about
But
bishop c6? Can you still play a5?
you can
Because the
try.
pawn on a7 is defended.
You can try. What I think he wants to do is play b3 or rook a1 first. I don't think he wants to play a5 immediately. Yeah, because if you play a5,
But
that's
then
another.
we can play a5.
That's another pawn, right? So still not easy. Still not easy, but this is a good opportunity right now for Hikaru. Good opportunity to finish the match. Right here, right now. Avoid the Armageddon. Win with the black pieces. Golden opportunity right now. Rook to c7. Again, still not easy. White does have a pretty easy plan, and that is to go rook to a1
He wants to trade
and a5. Rook. He wants to trade some pawns, right? He wants to trade these 4 pawns.
And Hikaru wants to trade that rook.
Oh, he would love trading that rook. Yes.
Yeah.
He would love trading that.
Is it always the strategy when you have an exchange up to trade the last remaining rook of the opponent?
Yes. That's generally a good idea.
The strength of your extra rook becomes much better than with 2 rooks against 1.
Yeah, it's definitely pronounced for sure. Yeah, I mean, look, that's a good idea. Rook to a1, but it's not easy to do because you play rook c1, I avoid that. I go rook a2. I'm not exchanging.
Mm-hmm.
So what Hikaru needs to do right now is stop white somehow of playing in a good way a5 and exchanging these four pawns, b2, a4, b6, a7. If Magnus manages to do that, then he's probably going to have the draw in his pocket. If he doesn't, and Hikaru manages to keep at least 1 pair of pawns, then he has good chances for a win.
Yeah. So what to do? I feel like he needs to put the bishop somewhere else. It's placed really nice on b7, but with the pawn on f3, it's hitting nothing.
Where would you go?
Maybe c8, d7.
C8, d7. C8, the problem is you're allowing this knight d5. It just looks threatening. I don't know if it is, but it just looks threatening.
Yeah, maybe that knight she needs to stay and it's stable. But bishop c6, I just feel like, well, maybe it's only temporarily we break the coordination of the rooks.
Yeah, and we're most likely going to see something like this, perhaps. By the way, a move has been made. He played rook to d7, a5, b takes a5, rook takes a5, and a6. Okay.
So he's saying the bishop can never leave from d4?
But I'm not sure that's accurate because I do have to move bishop to c3.
Possible. What is the rook doing on d7 then?
Rook to a3. Okay. A counterintuitive move right now would be to get the rook back to c8, which he does.
Wow.
That was very counterintuitive because the rook on the second rank, I mean, it looks so good, right? But unfortunately, it doesn't do much. The g2 pawn is protected by the knight on f4. The b2 pawn is protected by the bishop on d4. Rook to c8. Now I'm stepping back and getting ready for my next stage of the offensive, which don't ask me what that is because I'm trying to figure it out myself as well. By the way, they agreed to a draw. Never mind.
It's a draw. Wow.
Never mind. Okay. They just agreed to a draw. Okay. And that's exactly what I was saying. I don't see the next stage of the plan, right? Everything is sort of protected, despite the fact that you're an exchange up. Everything is protected for white. So, exactly. Look, Magnus managed to pull the brakes in a difficult position. Hikaru put a lot of pressure on him with the black pieces, so that's an encouraging sign for Hikaru. But we're headed to the Armageddon. Maria, we're gonna have an Armageddon.
Yeah, that's amazing evening, guys. I'm really looking forward to that. So I guess we have a few minutes for a break while they are bidding, and we will see very soon who is playing white and who is playing black pieces. Black pieces player will have draw odds, and which means that draw is enough for a win, and the player will move to play the grand final against Fabiano tomorrow.
Armageddon coming shortly. See you guys soon. And we are back, chat, with the big Armageddon game between Hikaru and Magnus Carlsen. Hikaru will be having the black pieces, so he did win that bid. The question is, with how much time on his clock will he start? We have some people in the chat saying it's 8:35, 9:27. Place your predictions in the chat as to how much time did Hikaru bid to get the black pieces in this incredible matchup that's about to begin. Maria, I'm excited. Yourself?
Yeah, me too. Black pieces means Hikaru plays for two results. Win or draw is...
I think he started with 9:15.
Oh, wow.
So it was 9 minutes and 15 seconds, and he won the bid with that time situation.
Wow, that's quite a lot of time.
That is a decent amount of time, I have to say, but perhaps Magnus, knowing that Hikaru is such a speed demon, he did not want to see him fall down to his last few seconds against Hikaru. So that's probably why he bid something, I don't know, a bit safe, probably more than 10 minutes. We don't know the official bids. We only know Hikaru's, but that's my educated guess.
Yeah, and the game is already on.
We have the English once again. Magnus decides to go with a different line. We've seen Magnus play this English against Levon as well, but Hikaru, instead of going with a pawn to e4, he decides to exchange on d4, which is the much safer option. But right now, he needs to find a way to equalize. Again, what this means, Hikaru with the black pieces, is that Hikaru has draw odds. So if this game finishes in a draw, Hikaru moves on, wins the match, and goes to challenge Fabiano Caruana in the grand finals.
Wow, actually, the beats were 10 seconds apart.
Really? Oh my
Magnus
goodness.
beat with 9:27 and Hikaru with 9:17.
9:27 against 9:17. Wow. Yeah,
that's like a psychological win already
for Hikaru. Yes, no, absolutely. They both went under 10 minutes, which makes some sense. But they were 10 seconds apart. What a situation.
Wow.
Crazy bit. All right, knight to d5. Now Hikaru, he takes on d5. C takes d5. Are we going to see? Yes, we are. So exchanges, massive exchanges. And now queen to e7.
Which is good for Hikaru.
Yes. So right now, Hikaru has one weakness in the position, and that is the pawn on c7. That's going to be the weakness that he's going to have to fight to cure in the position, because white probably will go bishop to e3, get rook to c1, and then ask the question, how are you going to defend the pawn on c7? I have some space advantage as white.
Or is it too much?
c6. So let's see. Bishop to e3, c6. The problem with c6, and why I generally don't like to see this move on the board, is that even once you take on d5, you're going to play with an isolated pawn.
And
I generally don't want to see that.
White is never going to take on c6.
No. White is never going to take on c6.
And if we play c5, offering you to take on Passan...
By the way, none of this will happen because he played bishop to d6.
Okay.
So Hikaru is already nursing that weakness on c7 with this bishop, bishop to d6. I like this move. Not only that, but he also have a very nice diagonal on e5, the long diagonal potentially. So decent position. Still, white has some pressure, but the more pieces we exchange, the closer I get to my goal, and that is to make a draw.
Okay, so he plays b6, planning to play bishop on b7, or a6, because the pawn on e2 is also currently undefended.
Yes, and he plays fast again. We've seen the games so far have had increment, So you are gaining time whenever you are making a move. The Armageddon game, the big difference, one of the big differences of the Armageddon game is that there's no increment. So the players will not gain any seconds on their clock all the way until the end of the game. So you have to play fast, because if you drop down to your last few seconds, there is nothing saving you. And this is what Hikaru is doing right now. Plays fast, exchanges pieces, gets closer to simplifying the position.
Yeah, wow. How Magnus is defending e2 in advance, or is he just removing the queen from the attack of the bishop on e5, or maybe both?
I think both. Yeah, I think both. I think white Magnus wants to play a cagey game, wants to just make some moves, give black the opportunity to create weaknesses in his position. But I like what Hikaru is doing as well, taking some space on this side, get the bishop to a6 behind that pawn, maybe even bishop to b7 to look at the pawn on d5.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, bishop a6 and b7 look good.
Right, and I'm still struggling to see how white is going to make, where is white's big break in the position, right? That's my question. I see the engine is saying white is better and white has a pretty decent advantage. I don't see a good way for you to break my my defense. Like at some point, I guess you will have to take on c7 and sacrifice the exchange. Rook to b8.
Is he planning to play b5?
I certainly don't think
I think he's just removing the rook from this diagonal with the bishop on g2.
Oh, I think I know.
Maybe
what
he's planning
doing.
to play bishop b4 and is slightly afraid of this. No, d6 immediately won't work, but maybe
this is my guess. If you go bishop b7, maybe I can take on c7 and d6.
And d6,
and play like this. I'm not saying it's good, but this is an option that white had. And perhaps this is something that Hikaru wanted to get out of. He played rook b8, bishop to f4.
All right. Well, he can still play bishop b4, but at the same time, maybe trading the bishops is not a bad idea.
So if you trade, I take back with the queen. You have to go d6. You don't want to see this. This trade is not good for you because my queen invades, right? You don't want to see this. You have to defend the pawn on c7 with d6. The problem is right now, you no longer have the bishop defending this pawn on c7. So I will go double up on the c file and then you will have some problems. He decides against this. He plays bishop to a6. I sort of like this move. The computer doesn't. And right now, the computer really doesn't like black's position. For the simple fact that you have to worry about this rook to c3, rook to c1.
Doubling the rooks, and c7 is almost impossible to defend.
Yeah. And another reason for that is that whenever you put a rook on c8, I have this bishop h3 move. So you have to find some sort of a configuration to defend this pawn on c7. It's not going to look pretty, but you have to do it. You have to take the passive way out at this point. There is no other alternative.
E7 is defending it for now.
And once you attack, once you go rook c2, queen c1, Alehin's gone, then you can go rook to b7 and really defend tenaciously and passively at the same time. But still, white needs to create a second weakness. Where is that second weakness?
That's where he's going. That's what he's doing. He's trying to create another weakness.
Yeah, that's why he played this move g4. Not an easy task, but if anybody can do it right now, if anybody can defend this one, is Hikaru. We know how resilient and tenacious he is in this type of situations when he's under pressure. So f6, good move. Stop g5. Or at least if g5 comes on the board, we exchange some more pawns. I like this move. I also like this idea of going bishop to e8, bishop to g6, putting some pressure on e4. Okay, this was a good decision by Hikaru and taken very quickly as well. And this is important. Don't fall down to your last 2 minutes. If you're down to your last 2 minutes with such a complicated position, you're not going to have enough time to defend it.
Currently, he's 5 minutes down, but that's also what he started with, right?
Yes.
He started with, more
or less 5 minutes.
More than 5 minutes down.
A bit more than 5 minutes, yes. Okay, G5. Wait a minute. So now I can take rook F7, attack the queen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then pick up the pawn on G5. So you go, he took, yes, rook F7. They're following up this line. How bad is this endgame?
Well, C7 will be lost, right?
Yes. By the way, none of this will happen.
But after the rook trade, isn't the black bishop better than white bishop?
Well, look, we have this position right now. Rook takes C7, bishop takes A3. The guys are speeding up right now. And Hikaru is saying, Hikaru is saying, I trust this position. I trust myself to be able to defend this position. Wow. All right. This is not easy, but one thing that definitely trends in Hikaru's favor is the fact that we've exchanged a lot of pieces.
Mm-hmm.
There's no more constant pressure that you have to worry about. Right now, you only need to worry about one thing, the king's safety. If your king manages to get safe, a lot of the endgames are going to be within drawing range. And that's a good thing. And also the moves are a bit simple for black. You go king G6 or king G8 and get the rook to F8, put some pressure on F2 and say, what are you going to do in the meantime? So, and the fact that he played this sequence of moves so fast, it's a good sign. It's a good sign.
Yeah, still, and Magnus is really in the tank now, thinking.
White maintains some pressure. There's no doubt about that. White does maintain some pressure in the position at the same time. Rook to C6 is a move that's going to make things a bit difficult. Mm-hmm. He plays queen H7, but this allows rook to F8. And he has to play the move rook to F8. Get ready to meet this check with king to E8. Hide the king, and at the same time create your own attack. This is a critical move.
So white will have to keep checking?
Well, if you go rook F8, I'm not sure.
That is very close to a draw, right?
Once we start trading, that's going to be a draw, yes. So if Hikaru plays this move rook to F8, which he does, he found it. This is a very good moment right now for Hikaru. This is a very, very good moment right now for Hikaru. I have a feeling Magnus I have a feeling Magnus missed this move. This resource of rook to F8 and hide the king to E8.
Yeah, it's possible.
Because again, the material is very limited. If we get into an endgame, even if I'm a pawn down in a rook's endgame, very often those type of rook endgames are going to be a draw. So, and let's not forget, with a draw, Hikaru moves on. Hikaru wins the match right now with a draw. This is tense. This is very, very tense right now, Maria.
But at least Magnus is the one who is thinking.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, he has rook C7 check, but he will eventually have to return to C2.
The problem with rook C7 is that you don't have a clear follow-up, right?
No.
Like how do you continue? You don't want to exchange the rooks.
No, you don't want to exchange rooks. It's very
This is an easy draw, right? This is going to be an easy draw for Hikaru. So you don't want to do that. You have to find something very tactical in the position. Maybe
there is
E5.
a tactical E5, but whether he will find it.
Yeah. E5 would be a good move for Magnus. And this is a big trap because generally you want to take with a queen, keep the position intact, keep the structure intact. The problem is after rook to C7 and queen to C2, dropping back to defend the pawn on F2, but also support queen to C6. This is pretty much resignation time for black. You don't want to see this landing on the board. So these are the pitfalls that Hikaru needs to avoid. But if you go E5, maybe I can take with the pawn. And then you still have to prove something. E5 is the most testing move right now in the position.
Well, by now, Hikaru probably already calculated the response.
He's calculating it. Yes, he's definitely calculating it.
Yeah, the Magnus advantage on time is only 2 minutes now.
Dwindling down. Yes, 6 minutes against 4 minutes. Let's not forget, this is the Armageddon game. There is no increment. Black moves on with a draw. Rook to c7. He doesn't find e5. And right now, Hikaru has a great chance to potentially secure the drop. Game is still not over, but this was a big moment, and Magnus did not find the move e5. Very good news. King to e8, putting a lot of pressure on f2. How do you continue? Do you want to go back? Probably not. Do you want to exchange the rooks? Probably not. So you have to give a check.
But you will have to go back anyway.
And you will have to go back. Yes, yes. Oh, by the way, he plays. No, but this is great. This forces the rook trade. This is great.
No, he can go back to c2 still.
He didn't.
Oh, okay.
Oh, this is way easy right now for Hikaru. I don't know. I don't know. This is trending one way and one way only. And I can tell you it's not a Magnus win. Right now, Hikaru is looking primed to make a draw and advance to the grand finals.
Hikaru looks very confident.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. He's happy right now. Play queen to f4, allow white, to take a pawn there. But there's going to be a lot of perpetual checks coming in the position with queen g4, queen to d1. Your king is not going to be hiding anytime soon. He's not running
away.
You're not running away anytime soon.
Yeah, but even if Magnus could not calculate how to win there, still keeping the rooks was his best bet.
Yes. Especially
that was when he's up on time.
That was definitely a slip by Magnus, and Hikaru right now is taking full advantage of that. One thing you don't want to do is to take this pawn on b2. Because once we exchange this, and I'm taking the pawn on d6, then this d pawn is going to be extremely powerful, coupled with the advancement of this pawn as well. He plays queen to e5. Now he's going to have to deal with this loss of a pawn. I'm not convinced about this move. Queen to f4 was much better. That's the problem. That's why queen to f4 was much better, just because you have queen g4, queen d1. It's all about the nerves right now. As the time dwindles down, and as you know, you're so close to making that draw, it's all about the nerves. Still, a position with only queens on the board, definitely still very close to equality. So let's see how Magnus continues in this position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, queen f4 does seem to have been a bit more precise, because he's still attacking the same pawn, but also keeping the check option.
And somebody's asking in the chat, without the queens on the board, this is a losing endgame. A losing endgame might actually be for white, especially if black manages to get the king in the center very quickly. Queen to g4, that cannot be the right way. That simply cannot be the right way.
Well, we probably still cannot take, but he has queen f4.
Queen to g6. Now he's looking at taking. And then after queen to e6, he's going to respond with queen to f6, defending the pawn on d6. Mm-hmm. So this is a threat. You have to defend against that right now.
He can push a pawn, but then Hikaru also will start pushing pawns. The more trades, the better.
Yes, king to g2. Can you take on b2 is the question. Magnus is cooking something. Magnus has something in reserves.
Yeah,
he's a tricky guy. Okay, so this is what he wanted. If you take, F4? I give you a check, and then I go e5. And now you have to deal with the d pawn. That's why Hikaru did.
Yeah.
Yes, Hikaru played king f6 to defend against this, and now a4. But what if you just wait? Exactly. What if you just wait?
The time is coming close. Magnus only 1 minute up.
1 minute and no increment. Don't forget about that.
Increment. No
You're not getting an
advantage.
increment. It's still not that easy. Still, Hikaru has to be very careful. Very, very careful. G6. Oh my goodness. Queen to E6 seems to be a win for white now.
Why?
Oh
How is
no.
this different?
King to E3.
He's
He does
running out of
not
moves.
spot it. He does not spot it.
But that's impossible to spot.
Ooh, that
Just because black would be in Zugzwang.
black would be in Zugzwang. Yes.
Because he has no moves with pawns. He had this extra move with a pawn.
That was an insane moment right there. A big save. Whew.
It's impossible to calculate that.
You're not even looking at that. You're not even looking at Queen to E6.
Yeah, no, not at this situation without increment when you only need to win.
Oh my goodness, seeing that eval bar jump up and down like that. I mean, that gave me a heart attack for a second.
Give me the pills, give me the pills.
But now it's looking good. Okay, king to D3, king to D8. Good move by Hikaru. Queen to G3. Get the king to C7. Hide. Yes. Very good. Very good. Oh, he's escaping. He is escaping. Hide the king. That's exactly what he's doing. Hide the king and then start looking at perpetuals. Queen to D4. Activate the queen. Oh, this is looking good. This is looking like he's very close, Maria. I don't see a way for Magnus to even try anymore. I'm not seeing any tries anymore for Magnus.
And they are almost equal on time now.
Yes. I mean, with the king on F7, that looked sharp. But with the king on B7, you don't have these checks on E6. You don't have any ways to blackmail with exchanging the queens. And even if you take this pawn on D6, my king is going to be very close to your D pawn, right?
Yeah.
Let's just go. Let's go in. And that's exactly what
centralized queen.
That's a perpetual. That's a perpetual right there. Hikaru knows it.
Queen D1.
Hikaru must know it right now. That's a perpetual. He's not getting out of it.
He's just deciding which one. Well, even queen takes E4 is fine.
Queen D3 or queen D1, he just needs to calculate and give himself enough time to not have to be in like some sort of a queen to D3, king A2, queen to C4. Yes. Yes, that's fine. You can give a check and then queen to D4. That's threatening a checkmate. Queen to C3 is also an option.
Queen C3 also prevents queen C6. Well, he
might be tempted by that. He might be tempted by queen C3, and perhaps that's the best way to do it because...
No, but I think it's still, well, maybe it's a bit risky. Yeah, maybe queen D4 is better.
47 seconds. Oh my goodness, this is getting down to the wire. This is getting down to the wire.
Well, Magnus can check, but
46 seconds against a minute and 29. King to A8, very good move. Don't go to A6. Don't allow queen to C4, the queen trade. That would have been deadly for Hikaru, but he spots it. He plays queen to A8 fast.
Yeah, Magnus is still finding tricks.
Well, you have to defend because checkmate is a threat right now. Queen to A1 is a threat. Queen to C1, and then I pick up this pawn. Pawn on F2, and then I start looking at queen to C5 ideas. Exchange the queens and run the G pawn down the board. Queen to C1, G4. Don't take the pawn on... Wait, why didn't he take this pawn on... Oh my goodness, no. This is... Okay, still within.
But maybe it's still fine.
Get the king in. Get the king in right now.
Yeah, queen E1, but then what do you do? King move?
E5. This is not easy. This is not easy right now. Take on D5, but E6.
Only move.
Get the queen on E7.
But now the king is escaping, right?
Get the queen on E7. Get the king to C6.
He's 10 seconds below Magnus.
Yes, king C7. Yes. This is looking good. This is good.
Now they're even.
This is good. Queen D6 is also a move right now.
Quickly.
Queen D6. You have to.
D6 is fine,
you have to play fast. Great move. King C6. Go. Let's go up.
Up, yeah.
Let's go up.
23 seconds. So he's 10 seconds below.
Oh my goodness. 20 seconds. Queen D2.
But it's impossible to
Queen D2 might be losing. Queen D2 might be losing. So he goes Queen E5. 15 seconds for Hikaru right now. King goes to D6.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Queen takes F6. He takes it. Oh, he takes it and he wins it. There's no coming back from this.
Was it a mouse slip?
That's a mouse slip that finishes the match.
Oh my God.
And Hikaru takes the match, goes into the grand finals where he will be meeting Fabiano Caruana after eliminating the world champion Magnus Carlsen. What a barn burner of a match we had, Maria.
Oh, the Bottas Gambit by the world champion. Wow. And at the end, it was already very, very shaky. I started sweating.
I'm sweating. I mean,
yeah, he had to take that pawn on F2. Yeah, I'm not.
Goodness, what a match!
Wow, what a match! Instant reaction, also instant reaction.
And I think we're going to have the man himself in just a bit of time on the channel to give his insights on. Wow, what a match! I mean. Draw, but I mean, in the first game, it felt like Magnus was maybe putting some pressure with the black pieces. Then the second game, it was Hikaru returning the favor with the black pieces. And now we have this Armageddon that goes down to the last 13 seconds. And I have to say, it was all about the nerves, and Hikaru just managed those nerves better in critical situations. So congratulations to Hikaru for moving on. Big match victory against Magnus Carlsen. A second one in a row. I think he won against Magnus recently in the Speed Chess Championship as well. So in recent times, it seems like Hikaru, he's enjoying this type of matches with the world champion.
Yeah, Hikaru is definitely holding his nerves much better in such time pressure. Even though he was not playing precisely at some point, he was always knowing what he's doing and being firm and precise at his piece movements, at least.
Wow. But yeah, I mean, what a match. My heart is still pounding. He had that queen to e6. I mean, look at this. It was so this moment. That was such a scary moment, right? You played this move g6. It makes a lot of sense. You're controlling the f5 square. But after queen e6, you're lost because you take. King to g4, and if you try to
white has two extra tempos to make
1 and 2 exactly.
Yeah, and you lose those 2 pawns and you lose the game.
Exactly, you lose this one, then I create a pass pawn, then I have another tempi. This one would be all she wrote, but he did not spot it, and it's not easy to spot it. Forget about it. I mean, with only a few minutes on your clock, especially if you're not looking for it, and they don't have the eval bar, they don't have any of those type of resources, it's impossible to see it.
Yeah, and in the end as well, where Hikaru didn't take on f2, Magnus had this breakthrough and looked like he's playing for a win.
This one looked dicey, yeah? I mean, this one really looked dicey.
Here, white is already happy to trade.
I think this is the best move. So it's all about stopping the king from going to d6 for white. And I think the way to do that is you play this move. You started with this one.
And then you bring the king.
But even so, I mean, okay, you go here. And yeah, this probably would have been the best way to do it. But it's not easy. I mean, really, this is
but you cannot. Can you take on b3? We will have queen c3, right?
Yes, but that's not going to help you. That's not going. So you can do this. But this is a good endgame for me. Might just be weak.
Yeah, okay. I guess the king just goes around and helps the pawn instead.
You're first. Trade, but... Yes, you're actually first. And then I push. Look, imagine having to calculate all of these variations with 15 seconds on your clock. How difficult
I think we have Hikaru joining.
Yes.
Hikaru, congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, it was a wild match, but I came out on top.
You really did. And Hikaru, it really was your resilience and resourcefulness. Was that the key to today's match victory?
Yeah, I mean, this match, of course, I mean, it really, the first 2 games weren't super exciting. I mean, the third game, obviously, Armageddon was the one that was really critical. I mean, I think Magnus made a couple of mistakes. I thought, for example, I mean, a mistake being a generic term, but I thought when Magnus played G5, it was not a good decision practically because it simplified the position. I felt that at that point, I think I had maybe 5.5 minutes left, and I thought that he could have just played like Queen G3 and F4, just kept the pressure up and kept the game going forever. And he sort of simplified a little bit too early. Obviously later, I mean, it still was very, very tricky, but I found, I think, a lot of very, very good moves. There were many moments when I could have lost in the queen and pawn end game. I mean, probably I had a couple ways that I could have drawn, but I mean, without like 2 or 3 minutes on the clock, probably impossible. So yeah, it all worked out.
Hikaru, it was amazing to see unfold there. And there's some great questions from the chat about you and Magnus and your rivalry. In some ways, do you consider this a kind of modern Kasparov-Karpov duel?
I mean, I guess you could say it over the last like 3 or 4 years since the pandemic began. I mean, I think, to be fair, if you go prior to that, what is a good example? I think a good example, I'm trying to think of like a European analogy, but I'll just use a baseball one. It's like comparing the New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox. I mean, the Red Sox won a World Series in 1918. They didn't win again until I think it was 2004. That's probably a better comparison. The Yankees won something like 15 or 16 World Series during that time. So I don't think you could say that in terms of the early days. But you know, the last couple of years, I found a way to play well. I mean, I think the main thing is I don't fall apart against Magnus. In the past, I would have fallen apart very quickly, especially like this third game where when he played Queen H7, I had missed his Queen H7 idea altogether. And even if you know, I do actually look at the cams. I saw Magnus's reaction when I played Rook F8, and he realized that he had made a slight mistake too, allowing that. So there's been a lot of back and forth the last couple of years. And I think, yeah, it's great for the fans for sure.
Well, just on that note, Hikaru, you're talking about some of the psychology. Did you feel like you had the upper hand when you outbid Magnus in this Armageddon?
No, I mean, I think the thing is in this event more so than the first one. Like the first one, I think all of us were trying to be like super precise in our bids, see just how low you can go. And I kind of was like, I'm just going to bid something. I didn't even really think about it that much. It was just like, make a bid. Who cares? You got white. You have 6 minutes. Just deal with it. And so there wasn't, I think, as much psychology going on. But it was nice because I think if you go back to the first event, I think I was bidding something like, did like 757 against Wesley or something completely ridiculous. I mean, I got away with it, but no, I mean, I was happy to be black having draws because, of course, in chess, most games do end in a draw, something like 60% plus. So that was an advantage, but still, the opening I got was not good. Magnus complicated very early, but you just keep trying to play moves, and I found a way.
Great job, Hikaru. Congratulations, defensive wizard. So we have a question from the chat actually here is, what is your favorite thing to do after a chess game or a match?
My favorite thing to do after a chess game or match is do a recap for YouTube and make money. That's my favorite thing to do.
That's beautiful.
Hikaru, congratulations. And looking ahead, tomorrow you get a chance for revenge against Fabi. What are your thoughts on the match?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's going to be tough. I will say that, like, coming off the high from today to have to play Fabian tomorrow, I mean, to have to win one match and then win a second match. But you know, I would say that if I look at this event, I felt that yesterday was the day that I played the worst by far. And I mean, it was really unfortunate because Fabiano also had a bad day. I mean, if Fabiano was playing well, I wouldn't have anything to complain about, but he didn't play his best either. So I think, you know, probably come out tomorrow, try to play good chess. And I mean, obviously I have to win 2 matches, but you play and you see what happens.
Hikaru, it could have gone either way. It was an awesome match and really fun to watch. So entertaining. I have to ask you at the
can I add something briefly, though? I just want to add one thing, though, which I think is important. Like, when I'm talking about the moment when he played G5, like, the reason I say he simplified too early is because this queen and pawn endgame, if we reach this queen and pawn endgame, I think at the start it's in like 3.5 minutes. If I have like 2 minutes there, I lose that, I would say, like 90% of the time. But because he simplified too soon, that extra like 90 seconds to extra like 100 seconds really did make a huge, huge difference. Like a huge difference. I do want to say that.
Right.
Fire.
Wow. That was a very exciting match, Hikaru. It was an awesome match to watch. And I was going to ask you that in that final moment, really anything could have happened. And we saw the reaction on both you and Magnus. And maybe we can bring that up for you because this was such a big moment. And you can see it when you fought so hard and finally it goes your way. What was going on in your mind when that Queen F6 happened?
I mean, it was just nice to win the match because, again, like, this is the thing that Magnus is better than anybody else. It's like there were many moments, like, around the time that he played king b3, queen d4. Like when he spent 30 seconds to go king b3, and I played queen d4. I was sure it was a draw. I didn't see the force draw, but I was sure it was a draw. And then he found ways to keep it complicated. So it's like you're trying to defend, and I mean, he can't win every match. I mean, I know he's the greatest player of all time, but he can't win every match. Like somebody can't just get lucky every single time. So it was just nice for a change to have something go my way.
Yeah, it was amazing, Hikaru. And what do you think? What's the reason that everyone loves watching a Magnus Hikaru matchup?
I mean, it's because, again, like it's because in the last couple of years, I've actually, I've learned how to play somewhat decently against Magnus, whereas for the previous 10 years, I mean, I just lost every game. It wasn't even close. And I think when you combine that with the fact that we're probably the two most popular figures in chess right now, and if the matches are close, like that's what you need in chess. Like you don't want one-sided matches. You don't want things to be boring and just wipeouts. Like that's never good for the fans. And so I think when you have us playing, the matches are always tense, always close. It's just very, very good for the game. Very good.
And Hikaru, I just have a quick question. You talked about your own growth playing Magnus. What can you say about Fabiano's growth in quicker time controls? Because he had many critics in earlier stages of his career, but now he seems to do very well in all of these rapid events.
I mean, I think that's just the nature of chess. When you don't have classical tournaments all that frequently anymore. I mean, like even somebody like Fabiano who plays every over the board event. I mean, I'm thinking he probably plays maybe 6 or 7 classical chess tournaments a year, and in the past it would have been something like 10, 11, 12. And I think when you have to shift gears, I mean, Fabiano obviously very serious player, and he's taken blitz and rapid much more seriously, and I think it shows in his results. So again, I mean, in a one-off tournament, sometimes he won't do great, but overall everyone's so strong that to me it's not that surprising. I mean, it just really isn't surprising at all.
And Hikaru, final quick question. The T-shirt, was that chosen specifically for today?
Not really. I mean, I figured why not? I mean, because I do feel like yesterday there were moments when I actually did care too much, like in that first game and that second game against Fabiano, getting too excited, too into it. And it wasn't really about today. It's just something to do, something to get people talking. And yeah, it's what it is.
Yeah. That Armageddon definitely got people talking. Fantastic play there, Hikaru, and fantastic resilience as always. Thank you so much, and congratulations. We'll see you tomorrow in the grand final.
Thank you so much, you guys.
And we are back with the man of the hour himself, Hikaru. First of all, congratulations. What a match right now. I mean, we've been screaming on the stream. Our emotions are definitely at an all-time high. How are you feeling right now, Hikaru?
I mean, I feel pretty good. It's nice to win this match. I mean, it was obviously very tense. It seemed like there were two games that were kind of interesting for like a split moment, and then they petered out very quickly. And so yeah, this Armageddon game is really choppy, really back and forth. I mean, I think Magnus played very well. I played very well in defending. I mean, my one critique of Magnus though is definitely that I felt like for an Armageddon game, there were a couple of moments when he simplified too early. There were these decisions that I think if he had done something slightly different, he would have won this. He would have won this game and won the match.
With this move, rook to c7, rook to c8, rook takes f8, right?
Well, I mean, because so like if you think about it, I mean, just thinking about it like from a general standpoint, in Armageddon, as we like, if you talk about myself, Magnus, Wesley, Fabiano, whoever it might be, if we have enough time to think, we're not gonna lose. We're just that good generally. Yeah. I mean, okay, Magnus will create chances against anybody, but most likely we're not gonna blunder and lose the game. So what you need to do is you need to keep the game going for as long as possible before it simplifies into like a middle game or an end game where there aren't many options. So like the thing is, once we got to this point after rook c7, king e8, Magnus has no choice but to go into the end game. But if you could just like dilly-dally, move his pieces around and burn another minute off my clock, then it's going to be a far more serious situation and very, very difficult for me to save it. But I had just enough time to where I was able to make it work. But yeah,
there was this critical moment where he could have played the move e5. Were you calculating this? And he spent a lot of time for rook to c7. Did you calculate e5?
E5. Yeah, but can't I just take? Or am I blind?
What? With queen? What? If you take with the queen, rook c7 and queen c2, and that actually finishes the game.
Oh, there's queen c2.
Yeah.
I didn't see queen c2. Oh, queen c2.
And,
okay,
and
that's
perhaps
pretty rough.
This is what perhaps this is what he was thinking
Yeah, you have to take
for
with the
so long
pawn,
as
so
well.
you can play queen d6.
Ooh, that is brutal. Wow. Yeah, actually, if you were to ask me, I think Magnus probably did not see queen c5.
Probably not.
That's my guess. That's my guess, but I could be completely wrong on that too. He might have seen it and he thought the d takes e5 was fine.
And it's one of those moments where you feel that there's something, but you cannot find all the precise moves, right? And you only have a few minutes to calculate everything.
I mean, it's like they're I feel like in Armageddon, assuming that it's a normal game, it doesn't simplify really early. Generally, you're gonna have like 3 or 4 moves where you need to use the time, and those are the moves where if you use the time correctly and you find the right solution, you're gonna be okay. But if you make even one or two of those moves wrong, you're gonna lose the game. That's really how I feel. That's what I feel like it comes down to. And I mean, even once Magnus tried the rooks, I was so sure it would be an easy draw, and then he found this way to like move his king all over the board, and like I'm getting low on time. I'm like, what is going on here? How is it that I'm not just drawing easily? Because somewhere around this point when he went king g2, I'm like, okay, this has to be an easy draw. Like it just has to be an easy draw when you look at the position. But then somehow it wasn't simple, and oh, queen e6 wins here. Oh,
and there was this moment, queen to e6.
I saw queen e6 one move later. I saw it one move later. Oh. Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay.
But he played king e3 immediately, right?
Oh,
because
we started sweating so much here.
Luckily, only for like 1 second, because Magnus played king e3 immediately, and this allowed to hide the king.
Yeah, but you cannot look
easy,
for these moves
much easier.
Move.
He had 3 minutes. I mean, but this is the thing. See, like this is a good example. Yes, queen e6 wins. If Magnus uses a minute or minute and a half there and he plays it, he wins the game and he wins the match. But if he uses a minute and a half and he calculates it's a draw and he doesn't play, then suddenly he's down on the clock. Suddenly he's lost the whole time advantage and it's all over. Like he's never going to win if he's down on the clock here. So that's why like there are a couple of these critical moments where if you make the wrong, if you use the time, you make the wrong decision, it's just over. Like in Armageddon, it's just over. Basically, if you get to even time, you have no chance. So that's why there are these really, really nuanced moments in the game where if you play the right move, you find the right decision, it's great. But that's what it is.
Maria?
You kind of need to get lucky or really have very strong intuition.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's like, I think, there was an interview with, I think it was Halifman recently about Magnus, where I think Halifman said something like, Magnus obviously is a very strong player, but on top of being like a really good player and like having really good understanding, somehow he just knows where the pieces belong. And I definitely think that's true. Like even here, somehow when I was sure it was a draw, it just keeps going, and he finds ways and
creating problems.
Yeah, but I will say I did know when we were getting towards a time scramble. Like basically, if we got into a pure scramble, like 10 or 15 seconds on the board, I felt that I would have a very good chance of beating him just based on the experiences that I've had when we played 3-1 Entitled Tuesday and other events recently. So I knew that as we were getting closer that I would have a big advantage if it turned into a pure time scramble.
Mm-hmm.
Hikaru, you're playing Fabiano in the grand finals tomorrow. You already had a match with Fabiano. That didn't go your way. How do you see this upcoming match playing out?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a barn burner. I mean, obviously for me, it's a lot harder having to win 2 matches. But the one good thing is, as my shirt says, I literally don't care. And in this case, I definitely don't care because I beat Magnus today. And that, I mean, even if I lose like 3 games in a row to Fabiano, or I hang a checkmate or do something completely insane like I did yesterday.
This is the main win today. Yeah.
This will make it all good no matter what. So obviously I want to come out and play good chess tomorrow. I mean, I'll probably do my recap and then I'll look at something. We'll see. But also like it has been very tiring. Like, I don't know if you guys caught this, but I didn't fall asleep, but I was really tired and I actually closed my eyes and I was practically like napping for like 2 minutes in the middle of the game, in the middle of this first game here. So it's also been pretty tiring to play all these matches, but yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Hikaru, we'll let you go get some rest. We'll wrap up the show and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you so much. And once again, big shout out to everybody who's watching. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and make sure to send the love to Maria and Christian, their respective socials and everything else. They're doing a great job. So thank you so much to everybody.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Hikaru.
Right,
thank
see
you
guys.
for joining.
Bye.
Yeah, don't fall asleep. Don't repeat what Bottas' opponent did.
Right, exactly. Yes. Okay. See you guys.
Okay, see you.
All right. Well, Maria, it's been fun. It's been a lot of excitement in this match.
Yeah.
I have to say, I anticipated to see something crazy happening. I did not anticipate it to be this crazy. I will have to catch my breath, recalibrate, re-energize,
sure.
and I'll be back tomorrow. But it was a lot of fun doing commentary with you.
Yeah, I'm really happy we were here to hold each other's hands through this mud of mutual blunders and the jumps of the evil bar, which certainly reflected my heart rate as well. I hope you chat also enjoyed. We definitely did. It was a pleasure. I also enjoyed a lot this great community on Kick. Hope it will be growing. If you are watching and did not follow yet, please do. Subscription is also very appreciated. Thank you, everybody who was subscribing throughout the show. You're amazing. And yeah, I really enjoyed commentating with you, Christian. Hope not for the last time. Definitely we'll look forward for more. And enjoy the show tomorrow. We'll be rooting for you guys. We'll be watching from the back rows in Kazakhstan at the opening ceremony. So I will be with you and all the World Championship power there.
Until next time. See you guys tomorrow.
Bye.